This one brings me up higher.
I think we're getting ready. If everybody can take their seats, we're going to start it off shortly. Good to see so many people back. Some faces we haven't seen in a while. Good to see you, Gus. I think we may know why you're here, but we'll listen to your comments shortly. Yep. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. This is the Town Council meeting for Monday, March 21st. And Councilman Lesser, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilman. Sue, would you do us the honor of roll call for tonight?
Councilor Biggs?
Present.
Councilor Forrest? Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Lesser?
Here.
Councilor O'Connor?
Here.
Councilor Pelletier?
Here.
Councilor Pentelo? Deputy Mayor Mazzarella?
Here.
Mayor Rell?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And if I can take the liberty to explain something that's a little out of the norm, it's almost like a hybrid. I think everybody in this room is probably used to Zooms where we're all in our comforts of our own living room looking at screens. Well, we are back in person, but I can't remember if it was the last meeting or the last couple meetings. We've been working on the hybrid rules and procedures to allow for voting and being part of the dialogue to be done remotely. So I guess the oldest town in Connecticut is catching up with the latest technology in the sense that if we cannot make it in person, we can still participate virtually. So Councilwoman Pelletier is here virtually, live and in person, not quite. So with that, I will open it up to, and I don't believe we have any presentations. We just had the Board of Ed's presentation on their budget. So I would open it up to general comments. It's a public comment portion. For those that are not familiar with the public comment portion, you're limited to 5 minutes. I'll try and keep track of those 5 minutes. If you kind of see me, give a nod. Your time to wrap up is fast approaching. If you would, please give us your name and address, and it's free for you to speak. So I saw the softball girls from Weathersfield High School. To relieve your parents of having to sit through hours and hours of public hearing, as they said, they're your glorified Uber drivers for tonight, and that's, if anybody's got any kids in sports, that's exactly what we are. Take them from one to another. So please, come on up.
Thank you, members of the Town Council, for allowing us the opportunity to ask for your support. My teammates and I are here asking for both the
Hang
town
on one
approval-
second.
Oh, sorry.
Hang on. First, I got to start my timer. So, second of all, just name and address, please.
I'm Kyla Bergen, and I live at 72 Gooseberry Hill in Weathersfield.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the Town Council, for allowing us the opportunity to ask for your support. My teammates and I are here asking for both the town approval and monetary support for improvements to the Catone softball field. Many of our other teammates who could not be with us tonight due to other commitments in supporting the boys hockey team at States also ask for your support. It is important for us to tell you that we are looking for support to gain the minimum amenities that we believe is necessary to have a competitive softball field like many other towns. We're asking for partial funds that will allow us to obtain dugouts for safety, a scoreboard, and electricity to the field for this like PA systems. We believe the cost of these items will be approximately $33,000 to $39,000 for the materials we need. We ask for support through the process of in the budget, allowing a portion of the budget to be dedicated to improvements of the softball field. I have a letter here today expressing a request along with several signatures from my other teammates.
That was quick. Very good. Any of the other ball players? Put some of the freshmen on the spot? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. And as you alluded to, the boys varsity hockey team is playing down at Quinnipiac right now, and the latest update that I got 8 minutes ago, it's still 0-0 end of the first. So as a hockey dad, kind of keeping an eye on that. Anybody else wishing to speak for public comment? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. At our last town council meeting, sir, we had a discussion regarding a couple organizations that wanted a couple $1,000s each. And I opposed to those, and I think we had quite a discussion regarding one of them, which was called the Wethersfield Art League, better known as WAL. During that week, I contacted Bonnie Therian asking for information on this, and she was extremely rapid in getting it to me. And I was able to come down on that Friday and go through some files. And this is what I found. First of all, in 1976, the Wethersfield Art League and the Way program, I don't know what that is, were both located in the Stillman building as permanent tenants. No mention in any of the information I saw as to how much money they were paying as rent or what their costs were that they were paying to the town. Due to a fire at the Stillman building, the town suggested relocating WAL, that's Wethersfield Art League, which is not a Town of Wethersfield department or government agency. They were going to move them to the Little Red Schoolhouse at 193 Wells Road, which would be their sole occupancy and permanent location to run their private school business and store their supplies and whatever else. From the records provided by Ms. Pedestrian, I could not find any discussion regarding rental fees, who was responsible for maintenance of the building, the property, who pays the utilities, insurance protection, nothing regarding what WAL would be liable for in using this property. This must be one of the deep secrets of Wethersfield now that's now coming to the surface. It's small, but how many more are going on? It's now blatant that we citizens of Wethersfield are responsible for entitling WAL with additional improvements to the property, bettering their private operation with a new blacktop parking lot, which costs somewhere around $50-some thousand, a new driveway, removal of existing trees so they could have a much larger parking lot, handicap ramps, rails, reverse swing door, bathroom, ADA approved or access, replaced a Boco hatch door, provided lighting outside, and who knows how much more that I couldn't find. But it's obvious that we taxpayers are paying for all that. And to add insult to the injury by the town council against its citizens, and that's exactly what it was back in 1976. And here it is, 46 years later, it's continuing. But we add insult to injury by the town council against its citizens in the December 6, 1976 town council meetings, and it stated, council agreed to consider the Wethersfield Art League request to use the Little Red Schoolhouse, even though it would not appear on the agenda. So they held a meeting, wasn't even on the agenda. There was no notice to the public. There was no opportunity for public scrutiny on this deal, and it went through 46 years ago. Now, how many times has this happened in this town since then, if it's so easy to pull this off? To add more insult to the citizens of Wethersfield, against its citizens, WAL, a private organization, was allowed to move their business operation into a residential neighborhood with the approval of the Wethersfield Zoning Board at that time. Nice zoning board. I'll tell you, who could move a piece of business into a residential neighborhood? And that's exactly what it was. It's not a governmental agency. It's not a town of Wethersfield department. So I guess I guess bad things from the past just keep happening. And you know, we keep hearing about year after year, and you maybe heard it tonight before when you had your meeting with the Board of Education, the aspect of bare bone budgets. For 46 years, it's been said. I know I haven't been at any of those 46 years, but every year as I've been coming, we've been hearing how it's tight. We're streamlining everything, and are they? We've had 46 years of illegal activity, as far as I'm concerned, and our own paid employees, who are our department managers, how many times have you asked them to scrounge that budget and make sure they missed that revenue, Mayor? They missed that revenue, and they included all that expenditures to us.
Your 5 minutes are up.
I understand. I'll be back. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But we need to do something about this, Mayor.
Well-
And how many others do we have?
Right. Thanks for bringing the attention. I mean, we brought it up for the WAL last week because of the thing, but thank you for inquiring to Bonnie and bringing that up to our attention. We'll definitely look into it. Mr. Colantonio.
What is the clock? I don't see it.
No clock anymore.
Oh. Good evening. Gus Colantonio, 16 Morrison Avenue. I've been complaining about the stop sign on Morrison Avenue for the past 15 years. And I'm just going to read what I read June 2017 for those members that they were not here for now. Because over the years, as I get older, I tell you, I lose more and more respect for you guys, because it seems to me that you're not accountable for anything, and that's sad. But anyway, I'm still not convinced that I received all the answers to the question of why a stop sign will not be installed on Morrison Avenue. It's been 15 years now. You have told me that I have all the answers to the question I have asked on numerous occasions. I truly believe that the reason that the town has given me are a bunch of excuses. A little history now. Morrison Avenue, okay? I have pointed out that the original design and construction of Morrison Avenue was never meant to connect to Silas Deane Highway. It was connected to Silas Deane Highway around 1955. And if you really go on Morrison Avenue and Hillcrest Avenue, you can see a big difference between the way the two streets were designed. 80-foot right-of-way on Hillcrest and 50-foot right-of-way on Morrison Avenue. And on top of that, the houses on Morrison Avenue are so close to the road compared to Hillcrest that it's unbelievable. When the windows, even when the windows are closed, my house is getting older now, you know, the car goes by, and if I'm watching TV, of course I'm getting older, so I cannot hear as good anymore. Forget it, you cannot hear the TV anymore. I try to put it up, and my wife complains it's too loud, this and that. But anyway, let me compare Morrison Avenue with Hillcrest. Morrison Avenue is a 24-foot wide. Hillcrest is a 30-foot wide road. Morrison Avenue has a 3-foot grass strip except in places where there is none. No strip between Tifton and Orchard. Hillcrest Avenue has a 15-foot grass strip, 10-foot minimum. It's a lot. It's much better. It's a nice street, Hillcrest Avenue. Morrison Avenue has an average daily traffic of 730 cars. Hillcrest Avenue has an average daily traffic of 365 cars. You have to wonder yourself, a 30-foot road has only about 365 cars a day, and a 26-foot road has many more than that. And also, the curbing and sidewalk, it's one on top of each other. I mean, normal people would ask the question, why? At least if you don't want to do anything, give me a good reason. The distance from the curb to the front of the house for Morrison Avenue is approximately 38 feet. For Hillcrest Avenue, the distance is approximately 60 feet. But yet, the intersectional side distance for Orchard at Hillcrest is 344 feet to the east and 970 feet to the west. This intersection has 3 stop signs. The intersectional side distance for Orchard Street at Morrison Avenue is 290 feet to the east. And yet, the intersection has 2 stop signs. And this is the problem, though, that nobody really is listening to me. The intersection for Tifton Road on Morrison Avenue is only 232 feet. That means when you're sitting on Tifton Road and you look up toward Walcott Hill Road, you can only see 232 feet. What does that mean? The requirements are that basically for the 20 miles per hour, you have to have the intersectional side distance of 225 feet. For 25 miles per hour, you have to have a 280 feet. And we only have 230. So it does not meet the requirements when everybody goes at 32 miles per hour, the 85th percentile. That's what they say before. Now they even go faster. And this is crazy. I mean, the way people talk anyway. At the February meeting of 2017, something was stated, and I'm quoting now, "The council does not have the authority to authorize the placement of any stop signs. By charter, the council does not have the power, and it's the state prerogative to make that decision, and this report has been reviewed and examined by our local police with the state agency." That's a bunch of bull. Because I asked the question, when they did the work on Main Street, and they put 2 additional stop signs, did they ever ask the state? And I asked the question then, and I'm asking it now. You have to ask the state, yes, if the stop sign is on a state road. But this is a local road, come on, huh? I mean, where are we gonna go with this? But anyway, that's all I'm gonna say for tonight, so. Next week, we're going to say, or 2 more weeks, we're going to say the same thing in a different date, okay? Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Colantonio, you actually answered one of my questions, and maybe Bonnie can help us formulate something. We don't know if it's the council that has to approve this, if it's the town manager, if it's the police, or if it's the state. So you haven't been here in a while to rattle us a little bit, so maybe we will look into this.
And I respect that, but it's not like this. This is over 15 years I've been complaining. And again, I read it for June 2017, the same thing I did then. And after, like, what is it, 5 years after, you telling me that you don't know what I asked 5 years ago?
Well,
This is when I say, you're not accountable for anything. The only thing you want to be there. Everybody has a different agenda, and it's sad for the public. Thank you.
okay. Anybody else wishing to speak? Mr. Carson?
Thank you very much. Tom Carson, 12 Avalon Place. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about the Cove. I know on your agenda there's some recommended expenditures for improving Cove Park. And I think we have oftentimes in our town, some people that know me know that I talk about that a lot of times we don't have a plan that we follow through on with a lot of different projects that we have in town. We do things, we react more than we plan. And there's $270,000 sitting in this Cove Preservation Fund. There's a ton of ARPA money coming. If you look behind you, there's a circle on that wall behind you, and on that circle is Cove Park. It's a Cove warehouse. It's a crown, it should be the crown jewel in Weathersfield. And a lot of times we treat it like an afterthought. And I know that some of the expenditures make sense in terms of the controlling the invasive species and the dock. I don't really know how much sense that makes, but I would assume that it makes sense. But I would recommend holding off on the tree planting and not approving that until there's a real plan in place for what trees we want, where we want to put them, and what we want them to look like. And because these trees aren't going to be mature for another 10, 20, 30 years. And I would recommend hiring a landscape architect, park planner, some sort of a firm that's going to look at that whole picture. If you look at the picture in your agenda packet, there's an aerial shot of Cove Park. And I see potential there more than I see anything else. In 2026, I've said this before, you know that there won't be any sewage overflows into the Connecticut River after that point in time. We need to start planning for that moment in Weathersfield, so we can start really utilizing the cove a lot more than it's being utilized today. And it's like a construction scene down there. I understand why all the trees were removed. It's like a blank canvas, though. And I think somebody needs to look at it, and instead of just saying, put a tree here, put a tree here, put a park bench there, put a park bench there, that we really have a plan, that we can use that plan if we invest it. Instead of just spending $20,000 or $10,000, we can come up with a plan to go and try to get some state bond money, to try to get some federal funds, to multiply the money that we have and make that park great. And so that's my only thought with that. I just think that we need to, I know that everybody is concerned with improving Cove Park. I know we've had some state bond requests or funding to improve the trail that from the park to Solomon Wells House that didn't go through. But if you just look at that whole area and really develop a plan, and then maybe in phases start implementing it, I think it makes a lot more sense than just sort of doing stuff every once in a while. But that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to council reports. Anybody with any council reports? I guess the only thing I have to report is I attended the Inland Wetlands Advisory Committee the other day, and I know that Attorney Slater has been going to a lot of our boards and commission meetings to brief the members on procedure and on proper protocol to follow, statutes to follow. I would like to commend, I don't know if it was your idea, Bonnie, or if it was a collective ask that town council, not EL, not IL, be part of those this year so that they can, refresh and educate some of the members of the boards and commissions to the duties that they are obligated to provide as a member. Everybody is a volunteer on those. Nobody's really a true expert. So, my hat's off to our town council for doing that. I keep forgetting to look over at Mary. I don't know if she has anything to say.
She's ignoring me. Usually she taps me and says she wants to speak.
Any council comments tonight?
Everyone wants to watch hockey.
Yeah, hockey. Oh, and update is Weathersfield's up 1-0. North Haven had a couple shots, but they couldn't capitalize. And as my friend tells me, the gods are currently in our favor down there. So hopefully they can keep it up. Moving on, we will have town manager's report.
I have nothing to report tonight, so thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Keeping up with the trend. Sue, anything to report for tonight?
No, I have nothing as well. Thank you.
Great. Moving on. Council action, item B1. I believe we had some walk-in resignations.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of James Pelletier, 61 State Street, from Zoning Board of Appeals and Board of Ethics, both effective March 10th, 2022. And term for the Zoning Board is 8/2/21 to 6/30/26. The term for Board of Ethics is 7/6/20 to 6/30/23.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. I don't believe we have any ordinances or resolutions tonight. There is one item of unfinished business, that is the pedestrian right-of-way concern for what's commonly referred to as panhandling. We are working on that as we speak, and we're hopeful that we will have that before the next council meeting in April. So that'll stay on the table. I don't know, did I see Derek here? Oh, Derek is here, town engineer, to talk to us about crack sealing, our annual crack sealing program. This is to keep our streets, those that can't be repaved or shouldn't be repaved just yet, they can be maintained through the crack sealing program. And it looks like we have a new vendor doing it this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, I'm here tonight for my annual pitch here to do our crack sealing program, which we do every year. Annually, with the road funds, we allocate about $100,000 to maintenance of roads. Purpose of that is to extend the life of the road surface. The process involves blowing out the cracks, cleaning them of dirt, pouring in a hot rubberized sealant with fibers in it. Many municipalities in the town historically have used the crowd bid solicitations for this work. We have been using that in the past. This year, UCL USA out of Bloomfield was the low bidder again. Last year was the first year we actually used them.
Oh, okay.
But it was a change last year. We had a good experience with them. The work was good. So we were recommending that we award the contract to them again so I can get them started late spring, mid to late spring.
Great. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Just a couple questions, Derek. My memory's lacking, but can you explain how we determine which roads we're going to address this year? Is that part of that study that you're just now completing?
Yeah, so historically, what we've done is we go back to roads that were paved maybe 8 to 10 years ago, because that's typically when they are due for a crack sealing. So that's how we've been managing the programs in recent years. To your point, yes, we have the new consultant that's evaluating the roads, who will be providing us with software that we'll be using going forward to help fine-tune that. But for right now, we've been following the same procedure. I had my staff over the last few weeks go around and look at the roads that are in that kind of age and determine which ones seem to make sense to do. So the difficulty with this particular program is we pay per pound. It's hard to estimate how much we'll need. So we come up with a list of roads that we expect will be around the dollar value we want to spend, and then we make adjustments as we get closer to the end.
They basically expend all the product that they quoted, and
Correct.
That's where we are.
And generally, that's gotten us through most of the list, if not all of it, in past years. So, like I said, we'll make adjustments at the end depending on where we fall, because it's hard to estimate on a road. Every road's a little bit different in how much they can do. But the whole purpose is to have that as part of our paving program is maintenance, not just repaving. Because the longer we can extend those roads, the longer we can get by without the added costs.
Thank you.
Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. What is the time frame when this starts and ends? I'm sure you have to wait on weather, but is there a small time frame that you do all of the work, or are you just continuously doing it during the good weather?
No, generally, I'd say the program's usually 3 to 4 weeks from start to finish. I tried to get it done before July 1st, because usually, once July comes around, we have new operating budget for pavement markings. So we try and do the crack sealing ahead of the pavement markings. So generally, I try to have everything done by the end of June. But once they start, this company last year was good. They were in town for, pretty consistently, aside from weather conditions, to keep the work going and get it done.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any further questions? Okay, sealing,
Make a motion?
sure.
I'll make a motion to accept, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion as soon as I can find it, sorry. Make a motion to award the bid for crack sealing work to U-Seal USA, utilizing their bid pricing as outlined in the CROG bid.
Second. Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
I don't know if you're back up here later on tonight or not. Doesn't look like it. No. Not tonight. Last meeting a couple times. I don't believe we have any ordinances or resolutions for introductions tonight. Item B6, new business. Item A, this is the Kirsche Memorial planned for Mikey's place. I was going to call on you, but yeah.
No, Kathy can.
Kathy?
Kathy's been working on it.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council members. This evening, the Park Board is recommending to the council that you accept a donation from the Laura's Garden Advisory Board for putting a memorial garden in Mikey's place. I did outline it in the memo, and what we have tonight is members of the Gardens Advisory Board here to give you a brief presentation on what it would look like, and then we could answer questions afterwards.
Great.
So we have the first member up.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Sherry Labs, and I am the chairperson of the Laura's Garden Advisory Board. We'd like to thank you for taking your time tonight to hear our proposal for building a community butterfly garden for the people of Wethersfield to enjoy for generations to come. Tonight, we're going to present to you a concept for a garden in Old Wethersfield that we call Laura's Garden. You will hear tonight from Randy Collins from Beta, who is our landscape architect, and Rebecca Weaver, Laura's sister. I'd like to begin a little bit by telling you about who Laura was. Laura Kirsche was a 34-year-old mother of 3 who passed away unexpectedly last July. We have members of her family tonight joining us to hear this presentation. Laura lived her life with a mission of spreading sunshine, no matter wherever she went or whoever she met. Her love of her family, her friends, her students at Knobloch Elementary School in Glastonbury, and her love for the town of Wethersfield. It was evident to everyone who met her and had the pleasure of knowing her. Laura's love for all these things led us to create a nonprofit organization that has a mission for creating an inviting space for members of the community of Wethersfield to gather and appreciate everything that the town of Wethersfield has to offer. We hope that by people learning more about Laura and her story, that we can encourage everyone who visits the garden to spread joy throughout all aspects of their lives, just as Laura did for all of us who knew her. So I'd like to turn it over to Randy, who's going to give our presentation of the garden.
Good evening. My name is Randy Collins. I'm a Vice President and Landscape Architect with Beta Group. And what I'd like to do is give you a brief overview of Laura's Garden. In developing a concept for the honoring the memory of Laura and her passion for all that's natural and her friends and her family was somewhat of a intimidating task. But after listening to the family describe Laura to me, what I came up with was basing the concept on the Nautilus shell. And you can see on the screen a number of the attributes, and I left my glasses back at my seat, so I'm going to do the best to ramble through this.
Can you put that in presentation mode?
I can do that.
For us other blind people over here?
It's not really going to help me all that much, but I'm glad that you can see it. So there were a number of things behind the Nautilus shell concept and the Nautilus shell shape itself that really spoke to me about Laura and what I got to know about her from her family. And so they are in the perfection of beauty, strength, spiritual growth, and the creation of movement. And as I said, the love that Laura had for all things natural, especially butterflies and garden, her family and friends, this really spoke to me as a concept behind what really would be something that would be meaningful to the space. So that it's a space that people can come and go to at Mikey's Garden, that they may not quite understand that, but I think that once you're inside the garden, you really start to get a sense for what all those elements have about Laura. This is an overview of the garden. You can see the Nautilus shape. You can see it's basically the garden is a gathering area with a hardscape, possibly bluestone, and then a berm that wraps around it. The bluestone area is the shape of the Nautilus shell, and then you can also see a tree in the upper part of the screen. The garden itself is basically a berm that raises up on either side to enclose the garden, and is planted with perennials and shrubs for flowering and giving as much of a full year season of interest to the garden itself. There's a bench that you can see in the middle of the garden. It's a granite bench. There are 3 wooden seats on that granite bench, and they are representative of Laura's 3 children. What you can't see in this slide, but which is to the left, tucked behind that tree, is yet another granite bench with a wooden seat on it as well. And if you can imagine folks using the garden, being at Mikey's place, being in the park, but also imagine Laura's family, her husband and 3 children, spending some time in the garden and really getting a sense for a place that is a location that they can really feel the spirit of their mom. So one of the ideas, a couple of the ideas behind the design, beyond the Nautilus shape and the plantings, is also the having a fountain. Oftentimes when you hear about a fountain in a public space, there's concern about the maintenance of that and also dealing with some of the Department of Health issues with standing water. This fountain is meant to be a fountain that is, and I'm going to show you an image of it in just a second, is something that trickles down a granite column into a basin, and there's really not an opportunity to be out there splashing in the water. There'll be a stone area that allows the water to pass through it and then gets recycled. One of the other things that we thought is very important is being able to provide not only the full year of seasonal interest, but also interest in the evening hours. As we are moving into daylight savings time, you can imagine a nice day like today, or a nice evening like will be tonight, maybe before daylight savings time. And one of the concepts we have is having the bench be able to have an illumination in the lip of the bench. So just under where you seat, there'd be a channel that has an LED light that would be able to illuminate it. Very subtle, but still something that I think provides some interest in the ability for people to enjoy the garden even after sunset. I had mentioned the granite. Here's a couple of images of what we think that might look like. So again, it's really just a granite column, water bubbling up through the top and then running down the sides and going into the rock basin and recirculating. Where would this go? I'm sure you're all familiar with Mikey's Place. You can see the sidewalk that wraps around Mikey's Place and that green area that's just above it One of the things that really was sort of serendipitous about the design of the garden and thinking about the location was how, when we selected the location, which is where it's being shown on the screen, how the curve of the Nautilus shell entry area really fit into the elbow, if you will, of the walkway that goes around the northern part of Mikey's garden. Part of what we'll be doing is, in the design and the installation of the garden, is dealing with having both electrical and water service, the electrical obviously for the lighting, and for the pump and the water service for the fountain itself. One of the things that always comes up with gardens in public spaces is maintenance, and the advisory committee for the Laura's Butterfly Garden has already secured working with a landscape contractor to do the maintenance that is above and beyond what the town currently provides out at Mikey's place. So thinking about this as an operation of a garden can be sometimes labor intensive, but they've already got that taken care of. And I can imagine members of the family being out there and pulling an errant weed or two as they're out and enjoying the garden. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Becky to make some closing remarks.
Good evening, council members. My name is Becky Weaver, and Laura Hart was my baby sister. To know Laura is to appreciate nostalgia and tradition. In fact, when something felt authentic, fun, and memorable, Laura could be heard saying, #tradition, a coined expression that simply meant, let's do this again. This is probably why she returned to our town to start her own family. She was so proud to be a part of Wethersfield and all it means to be from here, never missing a traditional event like the Farmers Market, Memorial Day Parade, Corn Fest, or Lights on Main, to name a few. Laura appreciated the beauty and uniqueness of Old Wethersfield and all it has to offer, with a particular fondness for Mikey's place. Like many young parents in our community, Laura found it to be a networking hub, a spot to meet and gather with other families. And it's exactly where you'd find her if the sun was shining and it was above freezing, with Millie, Josie, and baby William in tow. Laura was never on the sidelines as a parent. She was in every moment, digging in the sandbox, swinging on the swings, soaking in the sun with her head tipped back and a contented grin across her face. She would point out the birds, the clouds, or beautiful trees to her children. She especially loved spotting butterflies and considered them to be visitors from above. The breathtaking renderings of her garden provided by Beta illustrate the way Laura saw the world. I have a unique interest in this location, as some of you council members know, being the art teacher at Hanmer School on the other end of Standish Park. A butterfly garden would provide numerous learning opportunities for our students with regards to scientific inquiries and observation of life cycles, as well as a lovely outdoor space for en plein air paintings. Laura would have loved this for her own students, as she was a hands-on teacher who believed in project-based learning and often provided real-life experiences for her class. Without even knowing she had such limited time, Laura didn't waste any of it. She took in the world around her wholly with intention, meaning, and presence. The serenity that this garden will provide reflects the inner peace Laura had because of her appreciation for life and the world around her. Laura's garden is designed to serve all of our community in many different ways. Our hope is that you can see what an asset this would be for our town. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions for Randy, the family, Kathy? Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. Not a question, but just a comment. Randy, this is a beautiful design, and to the family and to everyone, what a wonderful way to honor Lauren, and it's going to be wonderful for the whole community to enjoy that and benefit from years to come. I was fortunate enough to see this presentation at the Parks and Rec meeting, and it's just, you've done a wonderful job, and it's a nice benefit for the town too, so thank you.
Thank you. And Mary wants to say something.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to first give my deepest sympathies to the Kirsche family for your loss. And I want to thank you for all you've done for the town in the past, and even in your grief, you've chosen to honor your daughter's memory by creating this beautiful garden for the whole community to enjoy. I love the design. I think the location is perfect, and I just want to say thank you for choosing to build this. I think it's a great memorial for Laura, and it'll be wonderful for the community, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm looking forward to seeing it when it's complete, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, first off, I think this is a beautiful thing. I remember when Mikey's Place first started and they had their first presentation, how the community came around and they were out there, I was out there digging holes and helping put that together. So I would reference that if you are looking for community efforts, there are a lot of people who would love to throw a stone down and do whatever they can. It was a neat way for people to feel very connected to Mikey's Place. I know I felt that way, and so that was something that was kind of a wonderful experience, which I think this just complements that as well. The other thing is, the Kirsche family has long been a huge contributor to the town of Weathersfield. And I know if my daughter was here, she'd run up and hug Miss Weaver and say, "You're my favorite teacher." So I also know that they continue to contribute to the town. So if nobody has an objection, I'd like to make a motion.
Can I just jump in real quick? And I mean, to go off of Dan's points, the Kirsche family, all three of them sat up here as councilman. Steve Sr., as former mayor. Martha, I believe, was on the council. Steve was on the council, may have served with you. Did he serve with you?
Right after I left.
Right after. You're right. They do give back to the community. I know Martha, every year I get my luminaries from the travel agency. That's how they were as a family. I think the whole pretty much the old Weathersfield, for those that know Judy Keene, she did the diaper donations to her barn, and my wife and I were proud donors to that as well. To jump off of the donation part, I think it's a really great initiative for the butterflies. My kids started their own pollinator butterfly garden, bee garden. So adding to that, we're not going to be the only family that has butterflies that we constantly see come in. So that's going to be a great addition to Old Weathersfield. I think I'm looking at Deb Cohen. I noticed your front yard as well. We all do our part to attract the butterflies, to keep the pollinators going. And, not only does this serve as a purpose to remember Laura's life, but it does serve a purpose to keep the community together, that we are striving for a better environment and a great place to reflect. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't mean to take much of your time, and I don't mean to presume how you're going to vote, but I couldn't miss the opportunity after Councilman O'Connor's remarks to also make a plug, because we could certainly use help through this process. In laurasgarden.org, you can sign up to be a friend. We're always looking for donations, and we look forward, as the plans unroll and unveil, to put a fine point on what those contributions can be. I can tell you that starting next week, we've partnered with 1-800-Flowers. They have an online fundraiser. We have a plan for a dinner at the Charles in June, but you can get all those details, sign up with your email address at laurasgarden.org. We love to have as many friends as the garden as possible. Thanks.
Can you just spell that for those listening?
Sure. Laura's, L-A-U-R-A-S, garden, G-A-R-D-E-N.org.
Perfect. Thank you. Please, everybody, go sign up. It's a great addition to Mikey's Place, where we can both reflect on that child's life and on Laura's life, and enjoy the scenic beauty that this would provide. Without further ado.
So, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the donation of Laura's Memorial Garden at Mikey's Place pending all appropriate town approvals, and to refer this to Planning and Zoning for an 824 review.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Congratulations. Okay. Continuing on with the agenda, item B6B, Cove improvements. I don't want to put Kathy on the spot. I know you're, great job with that presentation. Thank you so much for your hard work working with this group. It does mean a lot, and it would mean a lot for the town community to come out and support it as well. So, on to Cove Park improvements, please.
So I'm here this evening to discuss some improvements for Cove Park. We've been putting together, staff have been putting together recommendations, talking with the park board, and as part of looking at the Cove Preservation Fund. And we've made some recommendations for some projects down at the Cove coming up in the next several months. And some of those would include that we do have a plan for planting trees, because as you all know, some of the trees had to be taken down at the Cove. And with me tonight, I do have our tree warden and tree supervisor, Corey Christians. So if you have any tree questions, I would defer them to him. So we're looking to get some funding to replace approximately 15 trees down at the Cove. Item number 2 is the control of our invasive species in Weathersfield Cove that has been coming up in recent years. Going back, not this past summer, but the previous summer, it was very evident. We realized we had a problem. We looked into it, talking with the state, talking with experts. There were also state grants that were available. We have applied for them. We haven't heard anything yet on them. But this would begin the process to start controlling the invasive species that are in the Cove. So that's item number 2. Item number 3, mentioned earlier, is the dock sections. That would be the dock closest to the channel, that we're looking to put a dock in there so that our extension docks that are used when the water gets high, as it is today, as a matter of fact, that it would, we'd leave those extension docks on the main dock and still have a dock that's adjacent to the channel entry and what we talk about is the old boat ramp. So that's item number 3. Then we have trash receptacles and picnic tables that we're looking to put down in there. It's kind of a brief overview of the projects that we're looking to do.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I just have a question for you. After listening to Mr. Carson's comments, is it possible, before we do the tree plantings and removals, what's that?
I believe we have a drawing, is that correct, Bonnie?
Yeah, it was emailed to everybody today. You have a copy, Scott?
I don't have I have a copy that Corey put together. I could certainly have him speak to that if you'd like.
But I mean, that was just something, as I think, just to address Mr. Carson's concerns, was that we just kind of said, well, let's just put one here and there. There wasn't really a consultative approach to it or an architect or something like that. And I just, I think these trees, as he was right, are going to take 10 to 15 years to grow. Why don't we just plant them right the first time? And maybe my thought would be kind of hold off on that piece. I'm not against any of the other pieces that are being done. I do think they need to be done, and I think they'd be additions to it, but that was just something that crossed my mind, is I'd hate to put a tree down and then 10 years down the road, we're stuck with this thing, and we're like, geez, that really doesn't, if it only had moved it over here, and if someone maybe from a design perspective had done that. The other piece that I just wanted to ask is, so the trash receptacles, you were mentioning 6 at $1,500, which is roughly about $9,000, so it's really $1,200 to have them deliver them?
No, our trash receptacles are $10,200.
But you said 6 times 1,500. Am I doing my math wrong?
Yeah, 9,000.
Yeah, and then likewise with the picnic tables, you have 6 at 750, which would be about 4,500, not 5,500.
We have to consider freight
But this one says it includes freight.
as part of the whole dollar amount, as part of the 5,500.
So it's about,
750 was what we feel when we go out to bid for the picnic tables, et cetera, it'll be somewhere around the 750 range. And then we anticipate freight, and freight's been a little crazy in recent months. So we're just being careful. We're only going to spend what we need to spend, and we are going to go out to quote for these.
and so you'll go out to quote, like even the removal of the tree stumps, that'll go out to quote as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that was my only concern was like the idea of a landscape architecture to do it right, to me, seems like a good idea, so.
Okay. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, Dan, I didn't mean to jump in on.
No, that's fine.
what- I believe that, well, I requested today if there was a drawing of where the trees would be and what type of trees, and they've provided that. So there is somewhat of a plan. It also includes locations of the trash receptacles and the picnic tables. I don't think it's in our packet, though.
No, because we just got it today. No, but it's.
It was emailed.
I also have a couple concerns. If you could, Kathy, could you elaborate on the dock situation? I couldn't see anything where we talked about in the plan that exists for the Cove about that additional dock at the, quote, old boat ramp. Is that?
Sure, I could speak to that. That dock has always been just part of the cove for a long time. When we did all the work that we've done over many years now, that was always scheduled to stay. It was never identified to be removed or anything. So what we did was we had a main dock that was in front of the warehouse that our original plan, we had to go to all our boards and commissions and to Connecticut Deep and the Army Corps of Engineers to get permission to do all of this work previously. And so that dock was always just considered, it would always be there. So it's never been that we didn't get permission for it, it's just always been there and been as part of the plan.
So I, apologize in advance. So that, you're saying that the dock exists now, or, last year it was there? We had 2 docks last year?
Yes, they were both there last year.
I'm sorry, I just never realized there was 2 docks. And then...
One of them was underwater a good part of the year because of
That's why I didn't notice it.
because of the high water last summer.
Can you speak to the status of the new boat ramp versus the old boat ramp? I've been hearing a lot of, I don't know if they're rumors or if they're true, but I'm told that the new ramp is not designed properly. People don't use it because of the design. And I'm wondering if you have any knowledge of that, or if anybody's investigating what we could do to improve that situation.
Sure. When we started this project, we hired engineers that had expertise in building boat ramps, and we gave them all the things that we wanted to see for the boat ramp. And we hired experts to design the boat ramp with certain conditions that we asked to have, and a couple of them were to be able to drive over it to get to the other side, things of that nature. But they designed it, went through a review process. Not only did it go through our town boards and commissions, but it also went to Connecticut Deep for their review, and also again to the Army Corps of Engineers. So this wasn't just, we're just going to design something and put it in. So it was designed to go in and to be that boat ramp that is that long, that extends into the water. And on when we have middle of the summer, hot, very low water, it's a little more difficult to back your boat in, to get down far enough to release the boat in. But it's also designed to be available during medium and high water, which is what it's all. We tried to kind of get a mix of everything. And that's the way it was designed. It's a 9% ramp. People will tell you it should be higher, or the ramp should be at 13, 12%, 15%. We did investigate it. We went through a process after it went in for the first year. We checked everything. Everything was approved. And it's just a matter of some people like it and use it, and others just don't. And I can't tell you any more than that.
So we've had like an engineer confirm that it was built to the drawings or so forth?
It was definitely built to the drawings.
Okay.
Absolutely. We had surveyors go out and check the angle of the ramp.
Okay.
It was built to the design of the ramp.
I understand it was very expensive, it was some $400,000, sound like that?
Maybe like 700,000, something in that range.
So my next question is, do we foresee people requesting that the old ramp be repaired, replaced with the new? As I understood that when we went out for this, it was grant money, I believe, right?
That is correct.
When we went out for that, we felt that the existing boat ramp was really not serviceable. That's what started the whole thing, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, it has one or two drops in it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the intent was to, we were never going to take the old ramp out. That was all part of the permitting process. That's the other thing. This entire boat ramp and docks went through a permitting process, and it was always identified that the old ramp would stay. We weren't going to remove it, but we got the opportunity to get a grant and put in the new one, and that's what we went ahead and did. Sure, it may come up that they might want those holes repaired or something, and that might be something we'd look at in the future.
The only other comment I want to make is that I'm really glad that we're looking at using that Cove Park fund to do a lot of these repairs, and that, from what I understand, this is really kind of phase one. We're going to address the Jersey barriers and that grass strip and so forth, hopefully in the future. But I think that fund was established to, keep that park in good shape and beautify it and make these amenities. So I was a bit of a struggle to convince people to use that fund. There was some resistance to using that money, so.
That actually wasn't the case. The reason why there's that much money in it now is that we were saving the boat funds to do the docks and the boat launch ramp. And we got lucky that a grant came out to apply for, you could apply and get the docks done, and we got accepted. And then we were still saving money because I knew the boat ramp was going to be expensive. And then we got a grant to do the boat ramp. So we had been saving the money to actually do those two things and got fortunate. And then we've been spending our time getting all that done, and then figuring out after the boat ramp went in, we wanted to watch the traffic. We wanted to figure out what that pattern was, how was going to be the best way to use the ramp. So that took a little while, and that's why we're in a design phase now for the replacement of those Jersey barriers with, as you said, we've got a plan that we're receiving a lot of input on to extend the island as you drive in down past the attendance shed, create a little island and put the shed on the island. So that is the next phase.
Does the fund get income in the form of interest, or is it in boat launch and buoy dock fee?
Right. It truly is the boat operation down there, the launchings and the moorings, and we do have two companies that do business down there, and we also get funds from that.
Okay.
I don't know that we get interest. I could ask. I don't think we get interest. I think that goes to the town.
Well, I just noticed that it, it's been going up 20-something thousand each
Yeah,
year, so.
if we have a good season and the weather's good, the first year of COVID, everybody had a boat. Last year, weather wasn't as cooperative, so it wasn't as strong. So we went back and looked at our history, and we've been anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000. Back in the 80s, we went all the way back to the 80s to look at it.
And then just one last comment, just for people that are watching. I did ask about the location of the picnic tables and the fact that some of those will be below the high water mark. So Kathy advised that those will be anchored so that they won't float away. And
Yeah, we don't want to buy them and then have them float away.
trash receptacles, I went down there today, and one barrel was about a foot underwater, so I hope we place those in a situation where if the water does come up, we can get somebody down there to remove the trash before it starts floating away.
Yeah, and these are a fairly heavy model.
Thank you very much.
Before I jump over to you guys, well, actually, if Mary, if you can hang on 1 second, I'll go over Councilman Hill.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick comment here, and it was in regards to Mr. Karsten and Councilor O'Connor's comment on kind of the long-term planning. And I think these are kind of no-brainer situations. That is the kind of the crown jewel of Weathersfield is the Cove. But to comment in terms of on the planning, it's a frustration we have on our side. It takes a lot of resources and investment on the council side to go out and allocate funds to have a plan for not even just the Cove, but we often do this with the Berlin Turnpike or the Celestine Highway. And without these kind of long-term plans, it's hard for us to go after the state grants, the federal grants, state bonding dollars, and beyond that, you need to have a commitment not only from all of us up here and the town manager, but 10, 15 years. That commitment needs to be long-term, 10 to 15-year commitment so that you can say, this is what we want Weathersfield, this is what we want this section to look at. So I think, to Mr. Carson's point, they are imperative. However, there's a risk on our side. That is now a sunk cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars that maybe the next person that's sitting in my seat just takes it and puts it on a shelf and that's it. So, I love the idea of kind of going out there and getting these plans for kind of like this crown jewel that we have in our backyard. But it's just a comment, there is risk on our end that it needs to have that commitment for the next 10 to 15 years so we know what we want it to look like. I would love to see, hopefully, the Cove Park funds. I know, Kathy, you had mentioned it's probably, there's still some there. So maybe there could be a commitment on the side of Parks and Recs or of looking into the future of maybe using some of those dollars towards planning for the future of Cove Park. But thank you for bringing this to our attention.
And we do have a master plan of Cove Park that we have been following that had recommendations in it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pelletier.
Thank you. I just wanted some clarification about the some of the trees that had been cut down. So I know you'll be removing the stumps, but does that include sort of all those downed trees that are just where like the whole trunks are laying along the water, like along that gravel path? Are those going to be removed, or are they going to be left to decay?
For the 2020 removals that went on behind the DMV lot?
Yeah, I went for a walk over the weekend along that gravel path, behind the DMV, all the way to the Cove, and there was just a lot of just downed trees along there that were cut down, but they're just laying, along the bank of the water. Are those going to be removed, or are they just going to be left to decay?
Absolutely. I've had that question a few times, and thank you, Council, for having me, and to the public who's interested in this topic. The Hurricane Isaias that happened in August 2020 blew down a lot of trees behind the rear DMV lot. And what we've done so far is to make the area safe. We found it to be the case after processing the trees that were heaved or broken off, that the material moving, because of the grade and the forest nature and the intertidal and flood zone that is, to be really an inaccessible project. And also, we didn't want to have any more disturbance in the area than we needed to, just environmentally. And, that it's not that the debris can't be cleaned up, but when possible, we leave trees naturalized where they had been. We handle forest borders behind houses that way, where private property abuts town property, and there's maybe an interest there of some care. It's just logistically convenient. If there's interest and like the council decides that this needs to happen, that it's cleaned up further, I would say that the area's been made safe, but I'd be glad to act on that. It's going to take probably resources and equipment the town may not have to, we could pick a way at it, but it might be something where there needs to be some kind of big outfit that comes in there and really cleans up the forest or something.
Okay, thank you. And just one quick comment too. I really like the parking lot entrance improvements that you have planned. The Jersey barriers coming down will be fantastic. So I look forward to seeing that work be completed this year. Thanks.
So just to follow up on Corey's part, I mean, the down trees and the natural decay actually serves as almost like a soil erosion preventer for that steep slope leading into the cove?
I'm not an expert environmentalist that way, but we would certainly have a negative environmental impact in going there to clean it up further because of, tire tracks and such that would cause erosion. Again, I'm not an expert. I haven't seen a lot of it float out into the cove and show up in the parking lot. There's a lot of trees that are live in there that are sort of holding the debris in there when it does flood. My understanding is also that water kind of makes things show up in that area rather than grabs it and brings it out into the river.
Right.
It would be, I would think, negative environmentally to go to more trouble intervening in that area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy and Parks and Rec board members, thank you for all your work that you do. Being a liaison, I see all the hours you put in and all the great work you do. I have a few questions, and one is to build off of what Councilor Hill and Councilor O'Connor said. So if we spend the $71,000 now, I think there's about $208,000 left, if I'm doing my math right, because of $279 in the Cove Preservation Fund. Is there a plan, or is it part of the master plan, of how to spend additional funds in there? You don't have to tell the whole plan, but is there a plan? Because I think it makes sense, and I understand this master plan, it makes sense to have a 5 to 10 year plan that we can implement. I think we all agree that the Cove is beautiful, but many people in town feel that maybe it's underutilized and there can be more down there. I've heard people say a restaurant, I've heard people say kayak races. I'm not here to comment if those are good ideas or not, but is there, so that's question one, is there a plan for that other $208,000?
Not a formal plan at this time. No, we're going to be looking at the entranceway, and we're working through that, and we're going to see where that comes out budget-wise.
Okay, so again, I might suggest that be part of the plan. And then, I guess a smaller question, but nonetheless something I'm curious about. The picnic tables, which I think is great. Are they going to replace, because a lot of them are not in great condition, or are they going to be addition to the picnic tables we already have down there?
Well, part of the spring, we go in and evaluate what we've got, so we'll look at what's there now and whether or not it should stay, and then there'll either be an addition or a replacement.
Okay, I'd probably
Yeah,
favor a
I-
replacement, but,
Yeah, we're
Understood.
hoping that they're an addition,
Okay.
but we'll check and see what condition after the winter and everything,
Okay.
which is something that happens every year.
sounds good. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you as well. My question is, as far as the treatments, I can break down what you sent down and assume what it says, but I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly. We, right now, what we're looking at is possibly one treatment that would cost up to $28,200, and if we need a second treatment, it could go up to $52,000. Is that the breakdown, or is it anywhere between 28 and 52?
We're looking at like a 3-year plan. So in the first year, we're looking at doing the first treatment, that would be $10,800. And then after that treatment is done, then we evaluate what's out there and determine whether or not we need a second treatment in the first year. So right now, we're just asking for the funds for the first year, both the first treatment and the second treatment, only if needed.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that as we're looking out toward the future, that we don't get ourselves in this bubble where we start with this one number and then all of a sudden it's climbed drastically because we didn't analyze it correctly for how much we need for that specific application. So right now, this letter is saying that we are only obligated to $10,000 and then the additional $8,000 if warranted.
That's correct.
And then moving on year to year after that.
Yeah, and it's what we've been told is 3 years, you get it all under control, and then it might just be something that's maintenance after that.
Thank you
And
very
we still
much.
have our fingers crossed for the state grant. You just don't know if you'll get it.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sure, follow up.
Yeah, so I do have a picture of the map here, so thank you for sending that over, Bonnie. I'm going to make an assumption that these trees are capable of living underwater, because they're going to spend a good chunk of their life under it.
These trees, first of all, I absolutely want to work within the context of whatever master plan and whatever vision everyone has for the park. This is just one idea of where we could replace trees where there was a dramatic change that had to happen recently. These trees are higher up than many that were removed. My vision here, my humble vision here, right, is that they'd be up near the bike path, south of Hamner Road, I believe, and along the warehouse section of the bike path that's a little less defined. Say they're 10 feet off the path, closer to the water, forming some sort of a row on 30 feet apart approximately. You'll notice a gap just south of the warehouse where there's an existing tree. I tried to work around, in walking the area, just tried to work around some existing trees that were able to stay. These species represent species that have already shown to be successful in this area, which is usually something I look for with planting, is one measure of what is possible to plant there and what we can have confidence will do well is what already exists. And a red maple is a large part of the forest composition down near the water along the river. There's honey locusts that are doing well. Willow is for sure a water-loving tree, and it is also present there. And up higher by the warehouse, I thought to add some color with the purple indicators. There's a cherry there as well that was placed near a bench, and it's probably the highest area, it looks like to me, away from the water. I would think that I have a lot of confidence that these trees could handle occasional flood, and it's to the tune of less than $4,000 or $5,000 for these. unless there's plans to change where the bike path is located, maybe it's a reasonable investment to entertain this or make small adjustments to it, unless there's a major shift in how the property's, utilized. We are planning having Arbor Day in just the end of April at the warehouse, and that could be less trees than this whole entire plan. But I feel like it would be good to get some root establishment to hang on and to help reduce some erosion that could happen, otherwise maybe. And again, maybe a small investment, considering. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, thank you.
Any other further questions? I just got a couple, and thank you, Corey, for the update on that. And I am looking at the email that was sent earlier. It does look like a lot of those trees are closer to the bike path, and then some of them are in fact behind the Cove warehouse.
Yes.
So, yeah, I guess to follow off of what Councilman Hill had said, if we can incorporate these trees and where they're located to, possible future landscape design there, if we have the funds, and as Kevin had said, those that are sitting in the seat 10, 15, 20 years from now can look back and say that, this is what, in the whole master plan of the Cove Park, they tie in nicely. I kind of agree with Corey's assessment that, getting these trees in place now would help to, relieve some of the soil erosion that does occur. Just a couple questions about the docks. Again, I know, it's a point, we don't want to belabor it, but, so right now we have two docks. The one closest to the warehouse is like the newest of the docks,
Yes, the one in front of the warehouse, that's what we call the main dock.
main dock. And does that have extensions to it? Have we added those extensions when it gets to high water mark, or is that as extended as it goes?
No, the plan was always, when we had high water, that dock is a double dock. And so when the water goes across in front of the warehouse, the extension would then be floated into place towards the higher ground, that people could kind of, what I'm going to call hop the fence and come down the hill and get right onto the dock.
Okay. Did we use those last summer during the high water mark?
We did and we didn't. We didn't because during the middle of the summer, we had a tremendous flood come in with a very strong current, and it literally took the dock that we used closest to the channel, which is the extension docks, and it twisted it and it pulled the concrete anchor up out of the ground. It was crazy what the current was. And it put the dock in such a position with the high water that we couldn't unlock the dock from the anchor without doing damage to the dock.
Gotcha.
So we weren't able to move them, float them over to the main dock, unfortunately. And we went down every day hoping the water was going down, and it took forever for the water to go
Right.
down.
Okay.
So this would alleviate that.
That's the dock closest to the channel, then?
That's correct.
I guess that's where our floating additions or extensions are right now?
Yeah, we were using them there because we used to have wood docks there, and they disintegrated.
Gotcha. Okay. Couple other questions. Thank you again. We spoke offline about the Jersey barriers, and hopefully that's part of the plan in the future, getting rid of those and then having a landscaped island right there and moving the shed up. And I know there's also been talk about, the additional garbage cans. These new 6 garbage cans would be in addition to what we currently have there now?
Yes.
And then, yeah, it's the next one. And then, this is what I think Bonnie and I discussed, and I think we had it on the call as well. One of the problems, and this is for the public to know, is that staffing-wise, we can't have staff on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays go down there. And I know it's the busiest time of the season is Saturday and Sunday in the summer months. That's typically when the garbage piles up and birds come, grab it, and litter is everywhere. These additional 6 would help alleviate some of that, but come Monday morning, hopefully staff comes in and is able to, have we cleared that through Sally Katz and Physical Services to be able to clean, empty the garbage weekly now that we have 6 more down there?
Yeah, we actually consulted with them on the type of garbage can and where it should be and where we should double up, where they find the most garbage on the ground.
Right. And then finally, I've asked, a couple people have asked about lighting down there, and I know, having served on the council for a number of years, it's been back and forth. You put the lights in to deter people from being there at night, but it also attracts people to go there at night. So it's kind of a lose-lose. People have asked to have a gate go there at dusk and close it off, but that's impossible because the boats come in at any time of night and they would have to leave. Any consideration for lighting down there?
Yes, as part of extending that island, we have to bring power down to the attendance shed that'll be on the island. So we're looking at bringing the power down, and with the power down there on the island with a telephone pole, that the possibility of putting a light on that pole is what we're looking at now.
Right. And we got to be sensitive with light pollution. I know Hartford Avenue has a nice view, so we just don't. We got to work with our lighting experts to make sure that.
It's a balancing act because we also don't want boaters. If we have a light up there, they're going to think they could be out all night and not come in. So we have to balance exactly what you say, and even maybe put it on a timer or something. So those are the ideas we're looking at.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Kathy or Corey? If not, is there a motion? We didn't do it as planned. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I can do it. I have it in front of me. Motion to approve spending $71,303 from the Cove Park Preservation Fund for improvements to Cove Park as outlined in this agenda item.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And before I go on to the next item agenda, I will be happy to report Weathersfield Eagles are state champions, Division II hockey. Yep.
Wow, what was this one?
3-0. Shutout.
Wow. That's
So,
a good team.
yeah, good team. They pulled their goalie 2 minutes to go, and we kept them off. So congratulations to Weathersfield Boys High School Hockey. It's a great win. I think I'm going to probably be hearing it from my son, who wasn't there tonight, but is at his own tryouts tonight, and he missed it as well. But moving on down the agenda, we have item B6C. I noticed the committee is here. I don't know if the collective voice wants to come up or if Mrs. Greenblatt will. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Rell, and Council. I'm Cindy Greenblatt, and I am here with the Kisha Farm Committee, and I wanted just to recognize all of them. We have Tara Costanza, Mary Breton, Pam Rowe, Jenna Golis, Mike Orsini, Paul Lasella, and Doug Silbo, and I know that Jim Woodworth would be here. He's in Florida, and I'm sure he's watching us right now. So, hi, Jim. All right, we are here, the last time we were here was 3 months ago, when we all heard the results of the townwide survey as presented to us by the University of Hartford Barney School of Business students. And we spent the last 3 months trying to take all of that data and to make sense of it. We formed 3 subcommittees. They were a committee on community concerns, a subcommittee on both active and passive recreation, and then a subcommittee on organizational structure. And then we, as a committee, met and we put all of that information together in a report that you're going to hear tonight. In doing so, I think we've filled the last or the fourth of our charges as they were explained to us when we formed the committee, and that is to present the findings to the council. So Jenna Golis is going to present that to you. For anybody that's here, there are some copies of the presentation over on the side if you'd like to look at it. And I just invite Jenna to come up to the podium.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, members of council, for having us here tonight. I'm going to try to be brief, only take about 10 minutes of your time on this presentation. Tonight, I plan to summarize the executive summary that you all have and explain the 5 recommendations for the reuse scenarios of Kisha Farm brought forth by community input. Then afterwards, as a committee, we will take questions. The first recommendation is regarding the barn on Kisha Farm. The barn could be a tremendous asset to the farm and the town. If renovated, the barn could be rented out to generate income and could be the home of programming and events to benefit the town. The town currently has an RFP to find an historian to survey the barn to see if it's worthy of historic designation. Historic designation does not obligate the barn to anything specific, but it would make the barn eligible for future grants to then possibly pursue these proposed reuse scenarios. Kathy Bagley and Jim Woodworth would act as project managers for the grant process and assist the consultant in the process. The second recommendation is to incorporate a 501c3 nonprofit to manage the farm. A potential name for the nonprofit could be Friends of Kisha Farm, and the nonprofit would be modeled after other nonprofits in our area, like the Keene Foundation, Eleanor Buckwolf Nature Center, the Weathersfield Education Foundation, and others, which have thrived and filled a need like this one could. Membership would be open to everyone in the community. The nonprofit would be overseen by a board of directors. The nonprofit could operate the Kisha Community Farm and maintain the recreational trails that could be on the property. The nonprofit would be managed by a team led by an executive director and farm manager. The goal of the nonprofit would be to implement the many reuse suggestions brought forth from the community, from our community listening sessions and the survey. You have the most cited responses from the community in Appendix B of the packet, but they include operate a working organic farm with a community-supported agriculture program, host year-round educational programs and community events on the farm, renovate and make accessible the barn, maintain trails and open space for year-round active and passive recreation, and many other ideas, such as beekeeping, community gardens, wildflower gardens, habitat restoration, a working farm stand, and many others. Appendix G in your packet shows just a suggestion of year-round activities that a community farm like this could support. We heard all the community concerns brought forth, and we understand the need for no additional financial burden to the public and an entity that is financially self-sustainable and also revenue generating. We've studied other local models of community farms, such as Massaro Community Farm and Holcomb Farm, and we know this is a successful, sustainable model. It's also important to note that growth with this model, like the other farms that were studied, can be incremental. This does not have to happen all at one time. These other farms have been successful with slow, careful growth. Lastly, our Kisha Farm committee would disband at the formation of a nonprofit when the community takes over. The third recommendation is regarding recreational sports fields on the property. We know from the community listening sessions and survey, there is support for more athletic fields in town and possibly on this property. We feel that the Weathersfield Parks and Rec Department is the entity best able to determine the recreational needs of the community while respecting all the major concerns expressed by the community, like possible loss of property value, cost, traffic, and maintenance issues. We know this was a hot-button topic with strong opinions on either side, and it warrants further discussion, but we wanted to make sure there was a placeholder for this item for future consideration by the town. The fourth recommendation is for a land use survey. This is the most important recommendation at this time so that we know where the community desires for reuse should be situated on the property. The deliverable from a land use survey would give us a conceptual design of the property and recommendations for the placement of community gardens, trails, farmland, open space, possible recreational fields, and other reuse scenarios. Our committee has reached out to local surveyors recommended by the Department of Agriculture for estimates to do the survey pending the council's approval. And we actually just received word this afternoon that the Department of Agriculture approved our request for a grant to fund the land use survey. Town Manager Therian will have more details at the next town council meeting. The fifth and final recommendation is that any decision about the property be made with the stated community concerns in mind. Impact on property values, traffic, and the cost, management, and maintenance of the property. Keeping these concerns in mind aligns any planning with all of the voiced needs of the community. With these recommendations to Town Council, our work as the Kisha Farm Committee is coming to an end. We believe we've fulfilled our obligations that we were charged with, working with the town and the community to determine possible reuse scenarios for Kisha Farm and presenting them to you today. We thank the community for their input during this entire process. And I think I speak for the entire committee that it's been a pleasure during the last 2+ years we've been doing this work for the town. We're so excited for what could become of the Kisha property. We really feel like the farm could be such a tremendous resource for the town, and we're really excited for what the community decides is the future of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Does anybody from the committee have anything they want to follow up with, say? I think Gina summarized it very well. Thank you, and thank you all for your very hard work, 2+ years. And I know a lot went into it between, I think, Bonnie, you've served on it most recently, and our former town manager as well. So we thank you. Any questions for Gina or for committee? Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, absolutely, I have some questions. I'm going to start out with the comment that you made about no financial burden to the community. And from what I understood from your presentation, you're talking about forming a nonprofit, a 501c3. And my question is, are you asking the town to turn over the 32-acre parcel to the nonprofit's care and custody, where they would direct everything that's done with that property in much the same manner that we have a situation in Old Weathersfield, the Weathersfield Historical Society, where the town signed a lease with that group to manage 4 town properties: the Cove Warehouse, the Standish House, the Keeney Memorial, and the old Academy building. That lease was, I believe, a 50-year lease, and it's for a value of $100. That's all the town derives out of that from a financial aspect. Yes, they provide a lot of services, but let's stick to the finances. Right now, the town is incurring approximately $200,000 per year for the next 20 years for for the acquisition of that property. So I would suggest that if we're going to turn over the property to a nonprofit, that they lease the property from the town of Weathersfield for somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year. That's what it works out to. There have been proposals by residents of the community to put something on that property that will bring revenue to the community, so that everyone that owns property and pays property taxes gets a benefit from that purchase. I'm going to go back a little bit because at the time of the referendum, the question came up about whether the property could be sold for development. I was told in a public meeting by the then mayor that yes, it could be sold. When you formed your Kisha Farm committee, I believe, and I wasn't at many of the meetings, I went to a few, I believe it was inferred that that was not one of the uses that you were going to investigate. You were going to look at open space, athletic fields, and other municipal purposes. I don't believe you surveyed the town adequately to learn what the true intent of the majority of the town residents was. You had a response of about 500 people, which came out to about 3.5% survey rate, which if you're just going to do a general survey of the public, 1% is considered a very valid survey. We sat here 2 weeks ago and looked at the results of a youth survey that was performed for our school-age youth, grades 7 through 12. That was a 94% response rate. That's a far cry from 3.5%. I don't think you've adequately addressed how you're going to pay for this project. And I would hope that you would reconsider pretty much everything that you've told us tonight. I'm not sure where we're supposed to go with this. There's no motion here. It's like, from what I gather, you've done your work. This is what we want to do. We're going to set up this 501c3, and I just have a big problem with who's going to authorize that. Is that going to be a town council vote to turn over the property to the care and custody of a committee, a nonprofit? And how are we going to repay the money that the town residents put into this project? Now, we're not even talking about any of the work that you're talking about doing. You could spend millions of dollars restoring that barn. You might get grant money, but you might not. Where are you going to get the money to put ball fields in? You haven't done any financial analysis of the problem. And quite frankly, I don't agree with anything that was said. But I thank you for your efforts.
Any other question? Mrs. Greenblatt?
I just wanted to address some of the inaccurate parts of what you interpreted our report to have said. So in the nonprofit farms that we investigated, and there was Massaro, which we visited, Holcomb and Granby, and Newton, what happens is that a nonprofit is created just to manage the agricultural part of it. So in a 32-acre property, a survey might determine that 5 acres, and I'm just throwing these numbers out there, but 5 acres would be a great area for agricultural production. And then the nonprofit would have to come forward to the town and ask for your permission, a license. And as Newton explained it to us, the town was reluctant to turn it over immediately, as anybody would be. That's just prudent. So the initial license that they got was for a year to see, can they make this work? Is this viable? And then when the first year was successful, both financially and as in terms of the community reaction to it, then their second license was for 2 years. And then it went on from there. So you are right, it would require, nothing can happen on this farm, on this property in terms of farming without town council approval. The property never leaves the control of the town, ever. In any way. That's not the intent of the nonprofit. The nonprofit steps in and helps in areas where the town just couldn't. A town is probably not able to run a farm, to apply for the grants. I know you're talking about that later. Apply for grants and do all of the things that are necessary to make this a successful operation. So the 32-acre Kisha property is town property. If it, in fact, there is a possibility that a farm could be located on it and a survey indicates that, then the nonprofit would have to come to you and say, do you have confidence in us? This is our financial plan. Will you give us the opportunity to do this? And then the town council will have the ability then to weigh in on it. In terms of the survey, the tours, and the listening sessions, we reached out to the community over and over and over. Those people who wanted to respond did respond. And we tabulated their results and we presented them to you. And the opportunity to be part of this community, the nonprofit, is townwide. This is where all the people that live near the farm can join and make sure that their needs are met. This is where all the people who wanted to see educational program can join the nonprofit and then work to bring those educational programs there. So I hope I've just cleared up some of that. It was never turn this property over to a nonprofit.
So you're going to turn over approximately 5 acres if
No, I
that's what
didn't
the
say that.
survey says. If that's what the survey says, you're going to ask to control 5 acres of land for farm use. Is that true or not?
We're going to bring a plan forward which will have both the plan for the farm manager, and how it will operate and what it will pay to the town and what it will hopefully take in. There will be a financial plan for it, though. But we're nowhere near there because we don't have the survey.
So if we're talking about the money that's costing us right now, we haven't even addressed loss of revenue, okay? Just the acquisition cost. You're talking about $30,000 a year for 5 acres. Are you going to put a farm, a co-op in there that's going to return that kind of money to the town?
These farms are incredibly successful, not only financially, but they bring a real sense to the community of who we are and what we value. They have repercussions that you can't even measure in financial terms, people coming to visit them, to take their programs. In all of our discussions, everybody here mentioned that when we want to go to a farm, we go to Glastonbury. I did it with my own children. Everybody does it because we don't have that opportunity here. There's a tremendous enthusiasm for this. There's thousands of people rooting for this to happen. If it fails, there's no loss because the town still owns the property, and the town then can pivot and make another decision about it.
There's thousands of people that want to go with your plan. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying there's thousands of people that have supported the plan on Facebook and through social media and are excited about it.
Yet
And
they
there's-
didn't come out to fill out the survey.
But that's their choice.
You had 190 people fill out the survey that
No,
wanted.
we had over 600 people that attended listening sessions, community sessions, and the
How
survey.
many people wanted to have a farm there? It was 170-something people. There was 190, I believe, that wanted a sports field.
Right. Well, so you have the input. Those are the things that the community wants.
But there's 27,000 residents in town. There's 14,000 households that pay property tax.
You're going to have to do your own work then if you want to see other aspects of it. But think of what you just heard tonight. You're acting on things that have just small amounts of input from the community. People care about things, they come out. And that we did not get that response in the survey. We didn't. People want to see an opportunity for their children and for their families and to utilize this property for the benefit of the community. That's what we saw. I mean, that's what it says in there.
I think you saw what you wanted to see. Thank you.
No, actually, we did not. And I don't want anyone in the room to think that. We conducted surveys that were only seen by the University of Hartford, Barney School of Business. They were never in our possession, and we got the response the same night you did in these chambers. We did not influence them, and we did not have any access to them. So they are here for you to take a look at.
Again, thank you for your time, but I don't agree with most of what was said tonight.
Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Cindy, and the rest of your team for all the work you've done. I just have a question. Cindy, I can ask it to you. With the initial purchasing of the land, did you or your team have anything to do with the decision to buy the land?
Other than voting in the referendum, we all had the opportunity to do that.
So as far as, you could answer as well. So as far as the planning on what to do with the land in your committee, what was your committee created to do?
So this, yeah, the first page of the packet that we gave you states the 4 aspects of what we were charged with. Get an RFP for a consultant through an established process, work with the town designated staff to research and prepare for planning or other grant applications related to understanding potential reuse of the property, host townwide charrettes open to the public, and help present findings to the council. So we weren't formed until after the referendum happened and the land was already purchased.
And right now with the grant that you're going to propose to us that you all applied to and gained, this grant is going to allow the agricultural survey to tell you on that property how much land could actually be used for what you have presented to us here tonight.
Correct.
So it could be 1 acre, it could be 20 acres, but that won't come until after that survey.
Right, and they would be able to tell us where the best use for agricultural production would be. If we were to put a sports field there, where would be the best place for that? Where would be the best place for community gardens, or, you know, any of the scenarios that have been brought forth by the community? The land use survey would be a part of that.
So then tonight's presentation is more so to just make us aware of the final results, where you currently are, what you've gotten as far as the grants that you've gotten through this whole process, which congratulations on all the grants you did receive. And you're not really asking us to make any decision tonight. You're basically just telling us this is currently where we are and this is the support we've gotten to do this, and we wanted to present this to you.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Pelletier.
Thank you. I just have a few specific questions. First, I had a question for Bonnie first. I think the deputy mayor had asked, you were going to look into getting an opinion from bond counsel whether the town could sell some of the land if we were so inclined, if that would be allowable in light of the language of the referendum and the bond language. Do you have,
I referred it to the bond counsel, but he's been on vacation, and when he gets back, he will make that a priority.
okay, thank you. And I had a question also about the farmhouse that's property. Oh, this is for the committee, Cindy or whoever. I just didn't see it referenced, and I just was wondering if your committee has a recommendation for what we should do with the house that's located on the property.
So we have seen from the other farms that we studied, there is farmhouses on those properties as well when a nonprofit took over management of the property, and that became the home for the farm manager, who's employed by the nonprofit. So it's sort of a part of a compensation package. The farmer lives on the farm, is sort of the caretaker of the land, almost acts as security, in hours when the community's not there enjoying the farm. So I believe what we're recommending is that the house stay on the property, is evaluated, take another look at it because it hasn't been lived in a little while, but ultimately stay on the property, stay with the proposed nonprofit, and be an asset for the farm.
Okay, and I don't know if this is outside the purview of the committee, But I'm just thinking the cost to maintain the farmhouse, the cost to renovate the barn, realizing that there's a good chance that some grant money might be available for the barn restoration, but just the ongoing maintenance of the farmhouse. And I don't know if and this may be outside your purview, and that's fine, but if you have any idea of sort of the cost, whether for maintenance or for renovation of the barn or maintenance of the farmhouse, that sort of thing?
When we visited Massaro Community Farm, they shared with us that they had gotten a grant, I believe, from the Department of Agriculture when they initially incorporated, and it was for $180,000, and they were able to use that money to restore the farmhouse and work on restoring the barn. So we know that there are grants available out there that could be pursued for both of those.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned that you were able to get a grant to pay for the land use survey. Would the grant cover the entire cost of the survey?
Do we know that?
No, all but 3,000. There has to be a local match, and right now, from what we're understanding, that would be 3,000. So that would be something that would come back to council in the future.
Oh, okay. Okay, and so that would be down, so we wouldn't be deciding that tonight, just, okay.
That's correct, yes. We just found out this afternoon, so.
Okay, thanks, that's all I have.
Councilman O'Connor?
Thank you. I just want to take a step back for a second. So there was a referendum that took place in the town of Weathersfield, and whether you supported it or you didn't support it, the fact is the majority supported it with the understanding that Kisha Farms was going to be used for three purposes: athletic fields, agricultural, and open space and / nature trails. And that's what people voted on. And so while I completely respect and many times agree with my fellow colleague over here on my left, thank God I have fake Mary here to block me, I think when we look at this as a revenue stream, and the deputy mayor mentioned a couple of times loss of revenue, well, this was never generating revenue to begin with. So I don't follow the logic it's a loss of revenue. And so and I kind of like when we talk about repaying dollars to town residents put in, I kind of do I equate it to, if I buy a car, the car doesn't pay me back. The value is me driving the car. So if I've bought this field, the value is in me being able to use it. And now I'm not opposed by any means to finding a way to make this a profitable investment on the town's part, to fund it so the town doesn't have to do it. And there are ways to do that, private and public combinations. And that's something that I think we should be discussing. But I think if I understand what's being asked right now, and I want to go back, there is an ask on this, and the ask is that, and if a resolution or a recommendation has to be written, I will gladly do it. I think the ask really is to hire a land surveyor to assess the situation and come back with a recommendation. And I think that's what was always being asked for to begin with, is you've come forward with four or five recommendations here of what you feel based on your committee's work and your public input, and whether it was 1% or 3%, it's what we have, and the majority have an option to speak up, and if they choose not to, then this is a democracy. We go with what the people say because they're the ones who show up and vote. And so the reality is, I think what's needed right now is a funding for a surveyor to come back and say, well, here's how, based on these recommendations, how it's going to play out. This is what the design is going to look like, and hopefully maybe even some cost assessments associated with it. And so I do think out of all of this, there is that one ask, because that is the next logical step, at least in my mind. Cindy, please correct me if I'm, or Mike or anybody, if I'm saying that wrong. And then the final piece I did want to ask, though, is when you referenced the recreational fields, I'm not sure, and this is probably me, but that was the only recommendation that there were concerns. None of the other ones had listed the pros and the cons. This one listed the cons. And so I'm going to address the cons. The loss of property value. I completely disagree with that, and I will give you a perfect example. Nobody's home around Catone Field went down in value. In fact, if you look at the value of the houses around Catone Field, every one of them has gone up astronomically since that field's been put in. So to me, the loss of value I don't think is true. The other thing is traffic. I don't even know how that can be a concern. Anybody driving down Highland Street when there's a Little League game playing or soccer's being played, you can't, it's the scariest drive you can imagine because kids are running across the street, they're parked on both sides of the road, whereas this field has the potential of putting a parking lot in, and you get the people off the road. So I think two of the major objections here are already gone, if you really look at past history and what's gone on. And so I support the recommendations that are here. I do think the town, whether you agreed with the referendum or not, I think the town spoke and they said this is what we want to do, then I think we as elected officials should hear that and try to do it in a way that's fiscally responsible, but also addresses the needs of what the people had asked for. And so it would be my understanding, I'd ask the town manager, would the next logical step in this be to hire a land surveyor or a consultant to lay out what this is supposed to look like?
That's what the grant that we just found out about is going to be able to assist to pay for.
But there's more they need.
3,000.
3,000 is needed, I mean, we just found out this, or Cindy just found out this afternoon. So if it's something you want to do, I would just wait a meeting only because I haven't even seen the paperwork. I mean, I'm hearing it's 3,000, but I don't know.
Because I think that's actually an excellent idea, just for the simple fact, because then we do the due diligence, come back with the actual factual data as far as what is it truly going to cost, how can we afford to pay for this, and what needs to be done from a town perspective. It's hard to disagree about, we should find a way to generate revenue out of that field to offset the cost of taxes in this town. The Board of Ed just came in here with their highest increase request in the last, I think he said, decade. It was the highest one ever. So, we want to help residents in town, and the last thing you want to do is start putting up all sorts of these, wonderful Taj Mahals because we think that feels really good, and then everyone looks at their tax bill come July and the end of the year. And so if there's a way to balance that, I think that's what our job is to do. And so I'm sure the deputy mayor will work very due diligently to make sure that we are balancing that. And so I just wanted to share my thoughts.
Would the town be interested in
You have to go to
running
Mike.
for
Oh, yeah.
enterprise? Well, I just want to, good evening. I just wanted to remind you that we did come forward with a request for funding to have a consultant facilitate the input and listening sessions. Maybe that would have addressed your statistical relevance or not, but we did do our best to get all digital, print, and all kinds of advertising to make sure that we had representation from the town and to fulfill our obligation. Question to you guys, is the town interested in running a for-profit enterprise? Deputy Mayor?
Absolutely. Show me where you're going to get some revenue. Okay, I'm going to correct a couple of mistakes that Councilor O'Connor said. The referendum question, and I don't know it verbatim, it was for open space,
Have it?
it was for recreational use, and it was for other municipal purposes. And I sat right in that seat, right in the front row, and I was told by the mayor that the property could be sold for development, that houses could be put on that. And that was spread through the community, and that's what people voted on.
Do we have the referendum that we could read?
The other way. So, the other thing I want to correct is that Councilor O'Connor said the land brought no revenue to the town. That is not a true statement. They paid $12,000 to $15,000 in property taxes on those parcels. Not much, because most of it was designated farmland, but it was positive. We are now negative $200,000 each year for 20 years to pay for that property, and we're not getting any revenue. If you look at that property conservatively, put 20 houses on there for $350,000 a house. You're talking about several $100,000 in tax revenue every year, forever, or 50 years, however long a house is going to last. So,
Yeah, and the associated burden on the schools and the roads and everything else that comes
well,
along
you
with
can
the
put
community.
55 and over housing there, and there won't be any burden on the schools. Okay? You can put a private road in there, and there's no burden on the town for that private access to there.
So, I mean, I'll just, again, remind you, I mean, this is a committee that came together under the premise of obtaining a reflection of the town's desires for how we would use our property.
Okay.
And what you heard is a reflection of that. Whether you agree, whether it's statistically relevant or not, we could potentially go through, if there was willing to fund, an additional exercise that would give you that comfort. But what you heard here is what is in fact the community stated, documented, and reinforced during multiple listening sessions.
Thank you. I said thank you for your efforts, I just don't agree with them.
Yep.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Cindy and all the members that worked so hard over the last couple of years. Appreciate your presentation. And I agree with Councilor O'Connor that the town voted on this. They voted for this referendum in a pretty significant fashion, and I think the town wants to see different uses for this property, as you guys outlined. I know in Newington, they have the Eddy Farm, which is a town treasure. It's thought of as a community treasure. It's frequented very often by not only residents of Newington, but from residents all over the state of Connecticut. People enjoy that, and if there's a combination of uses on this, like you're proposing, there is all kinds of community benefits for our town and for people coming into our town to enjoy, not just the farm aspect, but all the other things, ball fields. I just think there's a tremendous amount of potential benefits, and I remind people that this is what was voted for. So I was going to say more, but Councilor O'Connor covered most of what I was going to say. So I appreciate all the work that the group did. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Hill.
Be real brief, Mayor. I just want to say a quick thank you to the committee for bringing this forward once again. And just a quick question, and if I'm getting ahead of myself, please let me know. With the Highcrest School right next door, so you have this 30 acres here, you have acres upon acres, and then with the potential of a possible referendum in the future where the town would have to determine whether they're going to renovate Highcrest School, I guess my question is, maybe alleviate some of my fears, is that as both of these projects are extremely fluid at the moment, so how does the Board of Ed side and this either nonprofit or whoever you want to call it, how do they communicate in terms of kind of the needs of the other side? Because you're going to be right next door. Some of you don't want to kind of duplicate efforts in terms of ball fields and things like that. I just want to know going forward that both of these properties are not, the decisions aren't going to be made in a silo.
Well, that's why we were recommending that the Parks and Rec Department kind of take over the sports field aspect of all the ideas that came forth. We figure the nonprofit could take care of some of the other, active and passive recreation and the agricultural aspects of the reuse scenarios. But we really felt like for that reason, the Parks and Rec Department should kind of take over the sports field aspect, because then they could better communicate with other town departments for what's going to happen, with the schools and Highcrest specifically.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, just because these are, like I said, two very fluid situations moving forward, and I just want as much communication as possible between the two parties. So, thank you.
Councilman O'Connor.
I'm just going to follow up. I think, Councilor Hill, where your concern lies is more in the barn, since that is the side of the field that Highcrest is on. So that should be the part they should be discussing, is what are they going to do with the barn in conjunction with Highcrest, because Highcrest won't be moving across the street. It's really that barn area and the fields and all of that over there that I think is the piece that would have a direct impact or based on whatever they choose to do with Highcrest, so.
Appreciate that.
I guess that might be my question to the two former Board of Ed members. Do the students at Highcrest use, it's just the ball field over there, the Little League field. They use recess and everything is over by the playground, but that field is a Parks and Rec field, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
My understanding.
And then, we haven't really seen the plans, and then they are fluid, but the plan would be to move Highcrest to where the field is now. So we would eliminate one baseball field, and I guess, I don't know what they would put to where the existing school is
And
now.
that was kind of my point. It's like this,
Yeah.
this level of long-term planning, that's, everybody needs to kind of come to the table as we move forward.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Well, I guess, first, I'll echo everybody's comments about, thanking the committee. I said it earlier, you guys worked for 2.5 years on this, and Gina, thank you for presenting it. Obviously, you can hear the concerns up here from some council members. I gotta give, she had some concerns that aligned with you.
Oh, I thought that was a box.
She is partly there with you, and I hear your concerns as well, and I think everybody hears the concerns that are out there. We don't want this to be a revenue neutral, we also don't want it to be a moneymaker for the town of Weathersfield. But to the deputy mayor's point, it was property that was paying property taxes on the farm, albeit a little, and then the house itself, I think, numbers I heard were about $17,000 a year in property taxes, give or take. But it's an investment by the public, of $2.4 million for the initial purchase, plus financing over 20 years. It is a big purchase, and I think we got to do a good job, this council, or maybe even further, or future councils, when things come about, to weigh that balance. How can we make this profitable is not the word that I want to use, but we should be able to see some type of revenue generating aspect of this. And a farm, it is tough. Any farmer will tell you, 9 out of 10 of them fail because it's a difficult business to get into. Eventually there might have to be some type of financial support from the town to keep it going. We should explore public-private partnerships for some portion of that property. Ball fields, they're great, but as we've heard through numerous debates up here over the years, that is a cost on our physical services department to maintain those ball fields, to the Parks and Rec department to staff them and to keep the sports going. We should probably look at some type of a public-private partnerships for some portion of that property, be it the fields, obviously, as you guys mentioned with the farm and a private person coming in and maintaining it. We just don't want to be able to look back and say, we missed an opportunity and this is just yet another drain on town services where we're not getting much in the way of return from it. We've seen that with the Historical Society, that's been brought up to us in the past, that it's a 50-year lease and we don't get much money out of it, but those that do own it and make a profit out of it seem to do pretty well, yet the town is paying for the services and paying for the upkeep of those buildings. So I would just like to keep this dialogue going and for the counselors up here to know that we can't look at this as just one item, a nonprofit farm that's not making any money for the municipality or very little money for the municipality, but something that we should be exploring in a way that we can have a revenue generator from this property.
Allow me to speak one last time.
Sure.
I just want to, I get heated, I get passionate about subjects, Apologize for that. But I do want to say that I believe it's the responsibility of this council to provide services to the residents at an affordable rate, to be able to run the town in a professional manner, in a safe manner, and we are now entering the budget process time, okay? We were here at 6 o'clock listening to the Board of Education, who is asking us for a $3 million increase in spending for next year. Now, the Board of Ed is not alone. We have similar cost increases on the town side, and we are constantly looking for ways to mitigate those costs so that we don't have to charge everyone's property tax bill. People don't want to see their taxes go up by hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And so we're tasked with trying to figure out a way to make ends meet. We don't have very little opportunities to grow the tax base in this town. I sat in meetings in the past couple of weeks where we're talking about economic development, what we can do, redevelopment. And the bottom line is we have very few commercial properties that we can even work with to increase our tax base. The Kisha Farm was advertised as one of the last big open spaces that was in our community. That was also one of the last spaces that could be developed into housing or some other purpose to increase revenue to the taxpayers. So I'm not adverse to a farm or walking trails or restoring a barn or a co-op of any nature. What I'm having a problem with is we have opportunities to increase our tax base and we're letting them slip away. And no one, I've asked, what do we do? Should we get a consultant in here to advise us on what we can do? We're landlocked, we're almost fully built out, and if somebody has a suggestion of how we can maintain the services that everybody enjoys, they like the services, they like having their trash picked up, they like having their leaves picked up, they like having a safe place with our police officers, and all the other things that this town provides, ball fields, parks, all those things. Well, they all come at a cost. So I just wish everybody would be conscious of that. And we also have to realize that everybody, particularly up here, everybody is not in the same financial situation as a lot of us. They can't afford a $200 tax increase on their property or a $500 tax increase, which we'll be talking about shortly. So I'll just leave with that. I don't mean to drag this meeting on forever, and thank you for the opportunity to wrap up.
I accept your apology.
It wasn't directed at you.
Any other further comments? Hearing none, there's no action that's needed by us tonight.
No.
Right. So, unless the deputy mayor is going to arm wrestle somebody for a motion, we do thank you. We thank the hard work of the committee. Gina, thank you for presenting tonight. Appreciate it. Want me to? Sure. She's going. Moving on to item B6D, I heard the town manager and Councilman Lesser confer. So, Mr. Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. So we are talking about discussion about elderly tax relief and comparing our plan. So there's a state option for those in our community who can least afford taxes. There's also local options that many towns in the state of Connecticut have adopted. We have one in Weathersfield, and I had asked how that compares to our neighboring towns, and are we giving a similar benefit in terms of tax relief to our most needy residents, our elderly, that are if you will, the poorest residents, and wanted to, so I went through the town manager to ask how our local option of tax relief for, again, our elderly qualified, how it compares to local towns, and are we doing something similar, or is there room to maybe have an additional tax relief for our most needy citizens, recognizing that that has to be paid somewhere? So I asked Bonnie if we could have a presentation comparing what we offer in Weathersfield to local towns, and I think that's what we're going to hear from Fawn, all right?
Yeah, and you have in your packet the information from our neighboring communities. Fawn is here, our assessor, to answer any questions you might have. And I would think at this point, this is something new Councilman Lesser brought up, so it's mainly just for discussion.
Okay.
Fawn, you want to come up in case there are questions?
Fawn, thank you for all this, and maybe I'll start by, if, in addition to thanking you, maybe you can tell us how our local option kind of compares the research you did to the towns you looked at. And certainly it's in our packet, but maybe you can summarize or highlight that for us.
Okay, let's see here. Wasn't prepared to really speak here, but we'll summarize. Well, we'll just give the basis of our program. There is the state program. We have to give that. It's a sliding scale between 0 to 1250 based on income. Town, they either get 500 or 400 based on married or single. You either basically get it or you don't. It's not on a sliding scale like the state is. We look like we do fall pretty similarly to the other towns, but I think it looks like Newington goes up to 775. Another one does a sliding scale to a maximum of, that's the state, sorry. So the other, Rocky Hill does a credit up to 500, and Berlin also does a credit up to 500. The tax deferral, I did read into that, and that actually is like a deferment out to when the property sells or the person passes away. Those taxes actually get deferred out to that time, and they do have to be repaid. Tax credit would be now, that person could receive the benefit now, but we're not going to be trying to get the money later after it sells or passes. We probably could do an increase. I think Michael O'Neill, he did an analysis on the bottom of there, letting you know if we do incrementally go up, what we would see that the town would be, I don't know, not reimbursing, but helping those people out in our in our way. So, but that would be it's not a forgiveness, but that would be off their tax bill, but that the rest of the residents would be offsetting.
And it covers veterans and disabled?
This is aside, this is apart from that. So veterans and disabled are other programs that we offer. The same income limits that are used for these elderly tax credits, there is a AdVets program, and I did speak with the Veterans Commission I think it was last year, a year before, and we went over all those programs and how people apply, so we did that last year with them. We could do the same thing with this commission too.
Thank you again. I appreciate the effort you put in. It was just my thought that we should look at this and compare to other towns and see if we want to, as a council, consider giving an extra benefit for our low-income elderly and how we compare to other towns. That's it from me, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin?
Appreciate it. I'll be real brief. And you may not know the answer to this, but looking at some of the data that was provided in the historic from 2011 to 2020, it's dropped. The number of applicants approved drops every year for the past decade. You know, it was at 506 in 2011, and 2020 it's now just 273. Do we know why that has dropped so significantly?
No, I mean, I do not know. People, if you do not reapply, you fall off the program. If you buy a second home in Florida and make that residence, you can no longer qualify on your main home here. It also is income-based, so if for some reason you got more income and you did not qualify anymore, you would fall off the program. That's the only reason I can really think of. The program is anytime anybody calls, we offer them everything we have. Anytime anybody calls social services, I'm sure Chris Taylor does the same thing. I believe the programs are advertised at the senior center. I was brainstorming other ways we could maybe get it out there. We could put it on the tax bill, maybe on the back of the tax bill. We could maybe put it in the mayor's letter. We could maybe put it on our channel.
Does the threshold stays the same, right, in terms of
It goes
the
up
income?
very, very low every year. So we mirror the state program for the income. And they usually do it based on CPI.
CPI, yeah.
So it's usually very low. It's like 2 to 4% per year that it goes up.
Thanks, Fauna, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thanks for the information, Fauna. I also liaison to the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and I spoke with Chris Taylor at the last meeting about this. My question to her was similar to Councilor Hill, has the need diminished, or, have, people passed on or moved out of town, or for whatever reason? Chris feels the need is still there. This program is not well advertised. Her description was that, you go to Fauna's office to fill out the application. Well, the senior center doesn't really advertise it. She made it pretty clear that we couldn't find anybody that advertises it. I believe the need is the same, just people are not aware they're entitled to it, so they don't fill out the paperwork. There's also a little catch that Fauna brought up about, correct me if I'm wrong, the state program is a 2-year program.
Yeah.
In the town program,
Covers
you have
every
to
year.
renew each
Yeah.
year. So there could be, and we're dealing with elderly for the most part, so,
Yeah.
there could be a situation where they think, in their mind, they filled out the state paperwork and they should be good for 2 years. I'm concerned with raising the cost, the amount of abatement, if you will, because I'm feeling like we should promote this and see where it gets us. Because if we raise it and promote it, we're going to open up a floodgates, maybe. I don't know, but I would. And we did talk about usually there's a little slip of paper in the tax bill, something where you could have a mailing that we don't have to pay for the postage. It's already being accounted for with the tax bills, and get the word out there that this is a benefit to the residents that need it. And my only unrelated comment is that I am advocating for trying to reduce our taxes so that everyone's taxes will go down, not just elderly that are asset limited, if you will, or income limited. But, if we can knock our cost of operating our town down, the whole population could benefit from it. Otherwise, what we're doing is transferring the burden from the lower income people to the middle and higher income people. So, thank you.
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. So I agree with Tom's first part, which is we should try and promote it more, maybe in the mayor's letter and other, maybe at the senior center, and don't necessarily need to, at this time, raise the limit cost, but I don't fully agree that we should let me phrase this right, that we should always be looking out for the taxpayers. That's part of our job in providing the services, but I guess I'm more comfortable with if we get more people using the program, some of us will pay more taxes to benefit those that cannot afford it. I think I'm more comfortable than the way you said it. So I'll say it personally, if my taxes go up to help some of the elderly who can't afford it and may benefit they see the mayor's letter and they see this, oh, I didn't know this, and they sign up for it, and my taxes go up because of that, I'm okay with that, because I think that's the intention of it, so.
I can just clarify.
Yeah.
So I fully agree, Ken, and I wasn't very eloquent in saying it, but what I'm talking about is, if the cutoff's 37,000 and you're making 39,000, your tax bill's going to go up. Okay?
Understood. Thank you.
So that's where I was going with that.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I mean, thank you, Councilman Lesser, for bringing this to our attention, and thank you, Fauna, for explaining it in a little bit further detail. Obviously, there's no action that needs to be done, so we can discuss it, but I think it is a good idea to promote it, and if I'm not mistaken, the state is every 2 years, and it goes up to $12.50
Yeah, on a sliding scale.
on a
Yep.
sliding scale.
Yeah. So, and they usually get both. So it's not like I think you'd ask, do they get only one or the other? They do get both. If they qualify for one, they usually.
Do we have data on who applies for the state and what the delta is between our applicants that take advantage of the local versus the state?
It's usually about half.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we have as many people, but money, dollars wise, the benefit here is about half of what the state's giving.
Oh, so the same amount of people apply?
Yeah.
So those that are knowledgeable do take advantage of
Yeah,
it? So
yes, yeah.
this may be something that we, to echo everybody's point, is if we promote it a little bit better, more people could take advantage of it. But the double-edged sword would be if we increase the amount and promote it, is what I'm hearing from Deputy Mayor is, then we would be, creating that hole. Okay.
And that's what I'd say, if we did want to do something, that we would put it off to next year, and we'd be able to better guess how much we think we're going to have to give out. So maybe this year, we, just in my opinion, make the push, try to advertise more, see how much the phone's ringing, see how much additional interest we may get for the filing period next year. And then when we are doing budget, we'll be able to better predict what might be coming.
Okay. And if we did it this year, it wouldn't go until next year's grand list anyways?
If you,
Or-
like, if you met today and said, I want to make this effective today, that would affect bills that go out in July. And we would lose that additional money in revenue. So, and if we had made a push and then we upped it and we're all of a sudden looking for 200,000, not that, that's a lot of, but we're looking for $200,000 somewhere, if the budget was that tight, it'd be something we hadn't quite predicted. But if we do make this, maybe you want to make it later in the summer, decide on some better numbers that you are good with, we can make it effective the next filing period, which runs February 1st through May 15th, and then we could give it to them that next July.
Right, I was talking to Fauna today, and she was just saying, because of what the period is for the application, we are too late to do anything for July of this year. So you wouldn't be doing anything until July of '23.
Gotcha. Okay. Speaking of the out years, when's our next reval?
2023.
2023, yep.
Coming up, yeah. So, we won't RFP yet for a little while, though.
Will the services be in your budget this year or next year's budget?
CNEF,
Yes.
Learn something with the assessors. Always be mindful that the reval comes, but it also comes with a cost
Yeah,
to
unfortunately.
implement it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. No other questions for Fauna or Kenny? Thank you.
Good, you're welcome.
Mayor, I was going to ask, can you move this up, because Sally's not
Oh,
here
yeah.
for the roofs, and Sonia's here, that way she can go home.
Okay, yep. We will, we don't even need to table the portables?
No, I can do the
Oh, you
portables,
can?
but I just
Okay.
meant.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, actually, I'll start off. We were talking about moving up the grant writer really quick, so Sonia can go home. So the mayor had gotten in touch with me about possibly doing a regional approach for having some grant writers be available for the member towns. And so I did a Zoom. Right now, Sonic Group, which Sonia represents, is the grant writer for Newington. So the manager of Newington kind of did a Zoom so we could hear more about their company, how it works, that type of thing. And I was very, very impressed with them, very impressed with what they do. And so I thought, ARPA funds, let's try it for a year contract. It's $24,000, it's a flat fee, and let's see what they bring to the town. Keith, the manager over in Newington, said these guys in 1 year have gotten them way more than the money that they're being charged. So the reason I had asked if we could put it on so quickly is because Derek found a federal grant. It's called the RAISE grant, and it's due April 14th. And Derek said, Bonnie, there is no way I can put this grant together. But you have to apply for a minimum of $5 million, which Derek has projects for. So I thought, you know what, maybe this is the perfect possibility that they could work on this with Derek, but Derek wouldn't have to be the main one to do it, and we could get that grant opportunity. And let's put it this way, if they invested $24,000 and got $5 million, I guess you got a hell of a deal. So Sonia is here today if you would like to ask any questions, but I would highly recommend that they be hired.
Sonia, you've heard from the public. There's,
Probably have ideas for grants.
yeah, you probably were hopefully taking some notes. I mean, there are plenty of options out there.
Yes, hi, I'm Sonia Richmond. I'm one half of Sonic Group. I'm the son of Sonia and Nick, so we're Sonic Group. My partner is, he's local and in Maine. He splits his time. We've been working together for this. We launched our company about a year ago, and we've been very successful so far with the clients that we have, especially with the town of Newington. So I'm looking forward to replicating that for this town as well.
Great. I know the deputy mayor had a couple questions.
Just a couple, and I'll be nice.
Okay.
I don't know when you got it to the meeting, but I'll be nice. I just want to clarify. I think this is a slam dunk. I want to just start out by saying that.
Okay, everybody.
But
Let's vote. Motion to move.
no, I said but. It's $24,000 for 12 months, but it's for 300 man hours, from what I read.
Right.
And then 2% on anything we win up to 5,000, I thought it was.
If it's allowable, so we wouldn't charge that unless there was and some grants you can pay the grant writer. We'll pay attention to that because there's some grants that you can't pay a grant writer.
Right.
And that's why we do the flat fee. So you get a whole bunch of grants and not have to worry about where you're going to find the funding to do it. In large grants, some federal grants, you can pay the grant writer, but you only pay them if you're successful. So the flat fee just covers everything, to be sure.
Right.
And then the ones that I've done for Newington, I didn't even put that in there where there was a possibility because it just didn't make sense, and I thought it would make it more competitive if they knew that the town had hired. So it's a case-by-case scenario, but it's likely not going to happen, only if it didn't take it or wouldn't reflect negatively on the competitiveness of the grant.
Have you done a year's worth for Newington, or you just started?
Just about. We're coming up on a year in July, and we only charge what we charge by the hour. So we've raised in grants over $200,000, and we've charged them $3,600.
And so
it's a great investment.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. The 300 hours, is that what you think Weathersfield would use in a 12-month period? Or?
About, because we don't write it in a vacuum. We use your subject matter experts. So our time is, based on, the town has very qualified people. We did our due diligence. We know who's in town. We know what you have for capacity. to turn around grants. Obviously, you heard there's a lot of grants that come in, and you're well aware of that. Our role would be to kind of backfill where you don't have time, like for Derek in this situation for the RAISE grant, and to help augment where you need support. We do pre-assessment during the grant writing, and we do post-support as well. So in the case of Town of Newington and for other clients, we have people who are inexperienced in terms of ever getting grants, but they get them, and then they don't know how to manage them because it's their first time around. So we also, some of the man hours is helping them understand the cycles and reporting and putting in the reports, because it's all about, that first grant, if you don't do it right, getting a second grant is going to be tougher.
Right.
So we want to make sure that everybody's got the resources they need to get that second round.
Thanks for clarifying that. That's, like I said, I think this is a very good opportunity for us to try out your firm, and
We'd be very
hopefully
happy to do it.
if it works like we hope it will, it could be a long-term relationship.
I'll go Councilman Lesser.
I'm happy to yield first to Council.
Who came first?
I think Dan.
We all know Dan did.
I think Dan did, and he always sometimes says the things I want to say, so maybe we'll shorten what I'm going to say.
Probably will. Question on the 2% up to 5,000, does that come out of the grant, or is that something the town pays you?
That would come out of the grant.
All right, so there's no additional cost to
No.
us. The other question I have for you is, what is your average grant size win, I guess if you call it that?
Average? Oh, gosh. They range. If I had to put an average, about $500,000 would be my average. I've gotten grants from all different, $1,000 grants, $500 grants, all the way up to $1.2 million over time with successive
But
grants.
the average ones you've won, though?
Average one, geez, if they go all, I'll have to do some math, but I usually get like $100,000, $250,000, like the $200,000 one, $100. They're about around that range. But I also do the longer ones, the $1 million ones. You don't get as many because they're longer to
Right,
write.
fewer.
So you have to.
But so for Newington, who you've been doing it for a year, how much?
6 months. We've been
For
doing it
6 months, and
yeah.
you've gotten 200,000
Mhm.
in 6 months?
6 months.
So roughly that's 400,000 for a year if you continue at that pace.
Yes, that's what, and then we have a plan too. So what we did is we spent 2 months assessing, and we came up with the plan. So for example, they were awarded a Connecticut Humanities Grant. That's a planning grant. The planning grant will go into an implementation grant, which will be about $250,000. So I'll parlay that $10,000 into $250,000, which would be, more. And then we're going to look at the federal grants to backfill any of the other areas where they're going to look. So over time, in the next 2 years, they should get about $500,000.
Have you had any success in actually winning grants over $1 million?
Yes, yeah. NSF grant, $1.2 million.
Awesome. Thank you.
And million, yes, 800,000, close to $1 million.
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. And I too think this is a slam dunk. And if I could put 3,000 into something and get 200,000 back, I wish my investments were doing that well. So that really is impressive work that you're doing in Newington. And you started to answer this, but maybe you can go a little bit deeper in terms of the grants you've won in Newington and maybe others you can apply for. I know that Bonnie referenced a potential $5 million grant for Weathersfield and for Derek, but perhaps other ones in Newington and maybe others that you could potentially see us looking at.
So there's regional grants that we could take a look at, like the BRIC grant, the Building Resilience Infrastructure Communities, about flood management. I always say a crisis doesn't stop at a border. It doesn't care that Weathersfield and Newington have a border, right? You're going to still have crisis going across. So much as we can look at times and opportunities where we can use to our advantage the collective population and the area and the geography that will benefit both towns, and including Rocky Hill. We're working with Rocky Hill as well. So anything that we can do collectively that will benefit the whole community, we're very interested in working with across the towns.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for providing us the information. What other towns have you worked with that are similar in this aspect? I see when you guys were, since you've been incorporated 2020,
Yes, we're just new, we're new.
Great.
But I've been a grant writer for 30 years, and my background also includes economic development at the then Northeast Utilities for 7 years. So I also worked at a private college where I had a lot of remediation work as well. So I have a lot of that kind of background where I had to work between two entities to broker and facilitate funding across for towns similar, like that was an urban town. But so far, this is my start doing this privately. But when I've been writing grants for 30 years, which is sad to say, but yes.
Thank you very much.
I started when I was 11, just get out that way.
Got it, 11.
How familiar are you with the federal infrastructure program that Congress is?
The one, yes, that's the one about fixing all the infrastructure, and depending on what kind of infrastructure across the land that they're looking at. Yeah, so I would say that I've been reading up a lot of it. I especially put a lot of time into reading the RAISE, because that's something that Newington is looking at as well. And the Build Back Better and all that stuff that's coming out. That it's a tremendous opportunity, and I think that the gaps that we're seeing here, what the federal government is saying, it's not by accident. They went around and they asked, where are the biggest gaps? So they're expecting that you take your worst situations and ask for funding to fill it. So I know the roads here are struggles. We know our water is struggles. That's how coming, when the first ARPA funds came out, it was broadband, water, and sewer. Who doesn't have a problem in the United States with that, at bridges and stuff like that? So I think Connecticut's no exception, and not all the towns are wealthy. In towns like, I think, Newington, Rocky Hill, our town specifically, we don't fit in that very poor bucket, and we don't fit in that very rich bucket. So we're kind of in the middle. But I think that's where collectively working across geographies will be a strength, because then we'll have more of a service area that can be more competitive.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
I'm going to make a motion to hire the Sonic Group of Newington to serve as the town's grant writer for a period of 1 year at a cost of $24,000 to be funded using the ARPA funds.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Congratulations.
I'll be calling.
Tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for the
Phone will
opportunity.
be ringing in the morning.
Nice meeting you.
You too, thank you.
Thank you for staying.
Oh, no problem.
Now on to the Charles Wright portable roof.
Yeah, Sally could not be with us tonight. She had a death in the family. So I wanted to just give you a quick summary for those of you who do remember. This project was submitted to the capital improvement to renovate the portables back in January of '21. And in May, the budget was approved, but the money wasn't available until obviously after July 1st, the fiscal year. When they went to start buying materials, because of the supply chain issue, it backed everything up and delayed construction. So it's been delayed for over a year. So right now, they've been trying to source the materials, get them on site as soon as school is out so we can get this done. Yes, it was funded for the roofs, but I just felt better that it come back to you so that everybody's still on the same page about getting these done and getting them done ASAP. So that's kind of a quick summary.
Any questions?
Motion.
Sure, Tom?
Everybody's all set?
So,
I'll make a motion to approve the use of $23,963 from CIP project code number 3010-54435-030628 for the re-roofing of the Charles Wright portable roof project.
second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And I think that's the last of the actionable items for new business. Minutes for March 7th are in our packet. Anybody had any questions or concerns, having reviewed our minutes?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 7th meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Minutes are adopted. Now we move on to the second portion of public comment. This is similar to the first section of public comment. You got 5 minutes, and if you would, state your name and address, please. Anybody? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I'd like to first comment on the 6D, which is the elderly tax incentive. Granted, it's related to people of a certain age and a certain income bracket that qualify for this incentive tax rebate or whatever you want to call it. But I really believe that all the citizens who are of that age should get the rebate as well, or the incentive. Because why, we've all heard the term, government picks and chooses the winners. That's exactly what you're doing here. This government, the state government, whatever government it is, when they start putting all these little conditions on, they are picking and choosing the winners. I believe that those winners are winners. The people that don't get it are losers. And the losers are people who won, they've worked hard all their lives, they've saved money, they've done good in life, and to keep these people in town, you should give them an incentive. Furthermore, they don't have children in your school system, which cost, what, $16,000, $18,000 a child? And I really think you should consider the fact of handing it out to all those people at that, over that age group that is indicated in here. I can't see how a group here, a group up in Hartford or anywhere, can pick and choose the winners. It should be, you made it 65 or 67 or 70 or whatever in the world it is, they all get it. Thank you. Next, tonight we heard about the Kisha Farm and their great proposal. I heard no money, how much they were going to make, it was just theoretical, what they were talking about. I've told you, I've spoke to you more than once, that if you turn this property into a subdivision that is an open space subdivision, you could squeeze in there on a 55 and over property, sales of homes, you'd get somewhere around 108 or more homes on that property. Now just look next door. Just look next door on what they call Stonegate. Stonegate is on the east side of the Kisha Farm. Those homes are on tiny building lots. Planning and zoning would have no problem in giving the town of Wethersfield, the owner of the property, based on small building lots. And because this would be considered a special kind of a subdivision, they probably would allow you, like I say, put 4, maybe even 5 of these small 1,600 square foot homes on the Kisha Farm. And if you got 108, and you have 27 acres, that's your 108, 4 per acre. And if annual taxes are $10,000 a year, and we see that happening with other properties like this in Rocky Hill, in Newington, I think you might even have some here. You bring in an extra $1 million a year, perpetual income. You know, Mr. O'Connor talked about revenue, if we could find something with revenue. Here's revenue, fella. Not only revenue, you get rid of your bond, your $2 million plus bond that we owe, and all the interest that's going to be attached to it over the many years with the suggestion that we've had tonight from these other folks. Now, in this process, if you sold these homes, and this is what happens, you never sell the property. You assign the property to your builder, who's going to build a house on it. You don't sell it to him until he has a closing. And when he has the closing, you cut in a nice share of the profit. Instead of selling the property, and let's face it, there was property in this town that was sold a year earlier than the Kisha Farm, 15 acres up on the back lane for $640,000. And they're putting in homes up there. It's already built probably, I don't know. But they were building all kinds of homes up there, and the price was $640,000. We bought 32 acres for $2.4 million, only a mile away. We need to find a way of getting our money back. And by getting it back is to sell it right. Sell it directly to the home buyer who is buying it, not the developer. You don't want him to put any money out for the land, because now he wants to give you less. And we have a cheap interest rate. So if we could increase we would have, if we sold out, we would have something like $43 million in homes, property, sitting on that 32 acres, 27 acres really. Your grand list would go up $30 million. This is a heck of a lot more than what we heard tonight from our other folks.
Mr. Young?
This is something you should really get into, because we need to get a return. And, you know, we have a number of non-revenue performing properties.
Mr. Young, your 5 minutes are up.
Yep, okay, I'm gone. We have non-performing properties in this town, owned by the town of Weathersfield. We need to get something that performs.
Anybody else wishing to comment? Hearing none.
I move we adjourn.
Into
Into executive session, sorry.
Motion to go in.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, motion to go into executive session. Second. All those, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Sue, you'll get the lights and all that, thanks. Come on in, gentlemen,
Oh, yeah. Mary, are you logging off? And then
we'll call her.
we'll call